This young man was backstabbed by his own sworn brother, all because he possessed a talent that surpassed SSS rank, and his power threatened the authority his brother held. Images of him and Laui, happy together in the old days, flashed through Van Triet's mind. Brothers for life. What a load of crap. It was all just a damn lie. Van Triet just never imagined that after a lifetime of glorious battles he would end up dying such a pathetic death. However, just as he was at his most desperate, a notification arrived. Van Triet's SSS rank hidden skill, Mirror World, had met the conditions for activation. According to its brief description, it was an ultimate skill capable of turning everything upside down. Van Triet could only see it appear dimly before him. After that, everything went blurry, and he gradually sank into a bottomless pit. 15 years later, by a riverbank, a group of young thugs had gathered to bully another kid. The boy was tied up tightly. They held him upside down, plunging his head into the river. Being tormented like this was clearly agonizing for the teenager, but the other brats were having a blast. They just kept laughing, not caring at all that their actions could take another person's life. Being held underwater for so long, the young teenager began to struggle for breath, his mind growing chaotic. It felt as if he was surrounded not just by water, but by resentment and despair. Just then, he seemed to hear a voice screaming in his ear, "Why? Why is it me? Why do you always treat me like this?" Seeing him writhing in such pain only made the bullies more gleeful. They even decided to hold him under a little longer before pulling him up to continue their torment. In that moment, another timid-looking teenager named Q-Tri appeared from behind. He spoke up, trembling, "Stop! If you keep this up, he's really going to die." The leader of the thugs turned around, shooting Q-Tri a look as sharp as a knife. Then he replied nonchalantly, "If he really dies, just have him use a healing spell. Isn't he an enchanter or something? Though he can only heal a tiny bit of health." After saying that, the thug walked over and slung an arm around the timid boy's shoulder, using a threatening tone to pressure him. "You're next. You're such a hypocrite, you know that. You're the one who showed us where to find him. If he actually dies, wouldn't that be your fault? Or maybe you want to end up just like him." With that, he slammed his fist into a nearby tree to intimidate him. But just at that moment, as something unexpected happened. Right in the riverbed where they were holding the unlucky boy down, a dungeon gate appeared. The whole gang of thugs immediately panicked. "A new dungeon! This is way out of our league." And so the whole group took off running. The timid boy Q-Tree also started to flee on instinct, but then he saw the poor kid, still being held underwater, and hesitated. After a moment's thought, he decided to go back. But as monsters began to appear, the rope just wouldn't come undone, making him frantic. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, more and more monsters appeared, and there was still no sign of the rope loosening. And then, as a goblin brandishing a large blade swung at him, Q-Tree thought he was going to die right there. But just then the teenager who had been submerged, the one they weren't sure was even alive, suddenly sprang up and fiercely fought back against the monsters. But the crucial thing was, he used the Gravity Ice Spear spell, which was meant for attacking, but it somehow turned into a recovery spell healing the goblin. Once the cast was complete, the opponent's health was instantly restored to full. This made Q-Tree panic even more, and he immediately screamed, "What are you doing? Why are you healing it?" As he spoke, he hastily created a temporary shield to block the monster's attack. Looking closely, the teenager who'd been underwater was none other than Van Triet. He seemed to snap back to his senses just then. He looked from the chaotic scene before him to his own 2 hands. Did I just cast a spell?" Van Triet immediately opened his character info panel. On it were his basic stats: Van Triet race, human level 5, class enchanter, maximum health 480 points, current health 430 points, magic 120 points, stamina 8 points, spirit 8 points, strength 4 points, defense 6 points, along with a series of other attributes. Van Triet stared at his hands in confusion. "Isn't this my starting body?" Logically, everyone who comes into contact with a dungeon for the first time is bound to the system and receives an initial class. That was something that could never be changed. Afterward, by adventuring in dungeons, people could continuously grow stronger and obtain classes that matched their abilities. But he had already advanced to the warrior class long ago. The very peak of it, in fact. Van Triet recalled the memory of Laui's betrayal. He vaguely remembered using a skill called Mirror World, and after that he was trapped within it, until he heard the desperate cries for help from this boy who shared his name. In other words, after being trapped in the mirror world for a long time, Van Triet had been reborn through this teenager's body. It didn't sound very logical, but it was undeniably a little exciting. Van Triet silently thanked La Ui for showing his true colors so early and giving him a chance for revenge. But it seemed there were more important matters to deal with right now, because Van Triet could hear Q Tree's voice yelling non-stop, "Van Triet, all the monsters are coming this way! Hurry up and help me! I can only handle 3 of them at most." Van Triet seriously observed the situation. This body was still too weak. Even if his opponents were just small monsters, he was no match for them. With their speed, he didn't even have a chance to escape. He tried to go through all the skills of this body's previous owner, but none of them were usable. His chanter class was so pathetic. All of his skills were support types with no aspect that could compare to other main combat classes. That's why the chanter was a class that everyone dismissed from the very beginning. Van Triet had no choice but to rely on his physical abilities to hold on for a moment, but that wasn't a long-term solution, because the moment his stamina ran out, he'd be a goner. He had to think of a way out of this predicament. It seems it's time to rely on that hidden skill Mirror World. But in his past life, Van Triet had only activated it by accident when he was about to die. How to specifically use it, he still wasn't sure. Even so, Van Triet decided to give it a try. Unfortunately, his attempt was rejected because he didn't meet the conditions to use the skill. Van Triet wasn't sure what conditions not met meant. Was his current level not high enough, or did he need a mirror-like surface like the lake from his past life? Van Triet tried again as the goblin charged at him, and coincidentally there was a large puddle of water at his feet. But it still didn't work. The reason was more specific this time: level not high enough. From that, Van Triet could deduce that the skill called Mirror World really did seem to require a mirror to be activated. But as for his level being too low, he had no way to solve that for the time being. He could only switch to a different target to test it. So instead of using Mirror World on the ferocious goblin, Van Triet tried to affect its weapon. The attempt failed again. Van Triet persisted. He switched targets again to the goblin's cloth pouch, but it was still no use. Seeing how useless Van Triet was, the other young man was growing more and more frantic. He yelled, "Stop using those pathetic support skills of yours! I can't hold on much longer!" Van Triet didn't answer, as he was still busy trying his hidden skill on various other targets. Suddenly, among the small monsters, another terrifying creature appeared. It was a level 11 super android, a demon born from the resentful energy on a battlefield 15 years ago. The moment he saw it, Q-Chi turned pale with fear and stumbled backward, because this type of elite monster required a level of at least 10 to deal with, and it didn't stop there. After the super android, a series of other monsters appeared, each one more terrifying than the last. In the blink of an eye, a horrifyingly large army of monsters had materialized before them. They didn't even have to do anything. Just the sight of them was enough to scare anyone to death. But Van Triet seemed completely unfazed by it. The only thing he cared about right now was that his Mirror World skill couldn't even be used on a roadside rock. Utterly disappointed, Van Triet tried to use the skill one last time on Q-Chi's shield. The result was a slightly different notification: operation failed. Cannot reverse another person's skill. A cunning smile immediately appeared on Van Triet's lips. He couldn't use this skill on others. So does that mean he could use it on himself? No sooner said than done. Van Triet immediately used the Mirror World skill on his own skills. And this time he had truly succeeded. The Controlling Vines skill was reversed, becoming Chaotic Spikes with a surprisingly large amount of damage. Before this sudden change from Van Triet, Q-Chi could only stare with his jaw dropped, but he wasn't free enough to ask how he did it. As for Van Triet, after fully understanding the effects of Mirror World, he felt extremely satisfied. For example, the original Controlling Vines skill could only launch a vine at an enemy unit to immobilize it. But after being reversed and enhanced, it could now launch sharp spikes to create chaos, and any unit that fell into this chaotic state would randomly attack other units. What was previously a useless, pathetic skill had become this miraculous after being reversed. Van Triet was filled with anticipation. So if he reversed all his remaining skills, what kind of effects would they produce? Mirror World was worthy of its SSS rank hidden skill title. It didn't just reverse the skill's effect. Other aspects were clearly enhanced as well. If he had used the skill directly before reversing it, not to mention the low success rate. The duration of Controlling Vines was only 2 seconds at most. It absolutely could not have reached its current level. Next, Van Triet chose to reverse the normal Blade of Attack skill. Originally, this was a skill that increased a unit's attack power by 5%. This effect would end after that unit used up all its mana points. After reversal, it became Magic Siphoning Blade. The duration was increased to 60 seconds, and for every mana point consumed, it would add 10% attack power for himself. Heh, ha ha! Van Triet laughed gleefully. Consuming 1 mana point to add 10% attack power? An effect like this was just too insane. As long as he activated this skill, then no matter what skill he used, it would boost his attack power. After reversing this skill, Van Triet also gained a level. It seemed chaotic spikes had brought him quite a bit of experience points. Once those monsters completely destroyed each other, he would pocket even more experience points. Coincidentally, after leveling up, both his health and mana points were automatically restored, allowing him to activate the Magic Siphoning Blade. Just like that, Van Triet, full of confidence, gradually took control of a battle that had initially been incredibly disadvantageous for him. He continuously used the 2 newly reversed skills in alternation, easily increasing his attack power by 2.2 times. This skill, which defied normal rules, allowed him to completely overwhelm the horde of monsters. They were endlessly pouring out from the Secret Realm's entrance. To Qiuqi's surprise, he was truly horrified, wondering if the person in front of him was really Van Triet, or not. Because how could a mere level 5 chanter possess such power? His strength is on a whole other level. Moreover, Qiuqi had never seen any other spellcaster use 2 skills in rotation like that. As for Van Triet, he remained completely focused on the fight. Based on your level 6 stats, you recover 120 mana points per second, and your maximum normal attack power can be boosted by 2 to 3 times. With that kind of strength, he could even manage to take on level 11 elite monsters. However, just as Van Triet had that thought, fate threw him a surprise. Terrifyingly, it was a great demon battlefield chimera, born from the resentment on a battlefield from 15 years ago. And most importantly, it was a level 21 monster. It completely outclassed the small fries Van Triet had been fighting. Qiuqi was too scared to speak, and Van Triet himself had never imagined this hidden dungeon would even have a boss. A hidden level 21? If it's a battlefield chimera, this is going to be tough. But tough doesn't mean impossible. As the monster charged, Van Triet calmly used Chaos Spike on it. Unfortunately for him, this time the target was immune to the Chaos status effect, so Van Triet's move failed. With the monster's momentum, Van Triet was just a split second away from being struck by its claws because he hadn't considered the possibility that the battlefield chimera would be immune to Chaos. So he hadn't planned an escape route for this situation at all. In that tense moment, it was Qiuqi who, disregarding the danger, rushed out and raised a shield to protect him. The sight seemed to transport Van Triet back in time to his past life. Back then, someone else had also disregarded danger, rushing forward to shield him, nagging him non-stop for being a disobedient kid who recklessly charged ahead. Van Triet's eyes widened, but those distant memories were quickly shattered by reality because Qiuqi was no match for the level 21 monster. He was struck by the battlefield chimera and immediately sent flying backwards. Van Triet rushed to Qiuqi's side. His health was down to just 4 points. He was on the verge of death. Van Triet immediately used Basic Heal, the base skill of a spellcaster, to raise Qiuqi's health. At the same time as the skill was activated and mana was consumed, the effect of his arcane blade also kicked in. It's just that the spellcaster's healing skill is truly pathetic. It took so long just to raise Qiuqi's total health to 25 points, temporarily saving him from death's door, but he was far from recovered. "Do you have a health potion?" Van Triet asked. "I have one at the bottom of my bag," Qiuqi replied. "Good, drink it." Temporarily relieved, Van Triet turned back to the headache at hand. How was he going to deal with that battlefield chimera? With his current strength, he didn't stand a chance against this boss. But most of the mob's health was already depleted, with only a little left. A plan had already formed in Van Triet's mind. He encouraged Qiuqi to hang in there for a bit longer, "'cause I'm about to take care of all these monsters." With that, Van Triet tightened his grip on his weapon and shot towards the mob of monsters like an arrow. This time he was using his combat experience as a warrior from his past life. Meanwhile, the arcane blade's effect was constantly maintained. Van Triet mainly targeted the low-health mobs to finish them off. It wasn't long before he leveled up again. At the same time, his mana and health were fully restored. Van Triet calculated to himself to defeat the boss, his attack power needed to be boosted by at least 400%. The arcane blade only lasts for 1 minute, so I need to use Chaos Spike 40 times within 50 seconds and reach at least level 10. And so Van Triet, busy dodging the battlefield chimera while relentlessly farming the lower-level mobs, was like a tireless machine. He kept on slaughtering them, much to Qiuqi's amazement. His level went up again. This repeated several times, until he reached level 12. The effect of his arcane blade had now stacked his attack power up to 510%. Its remaining duration was only a few seconds. This was the perfect chance to land a decisive blow on the level 21 boss. Van Triet timed it perfectly. Just as the battlefield chimera charged at him, he swung the blade in his hand to carve it up even though his current body was quite weak. But with the combat experience from his past life and the clever application of the 2 new inverted skills he'd received, his plan ultimately succeeded. The massive level 21 hidden boss was sliced into hundreds of tiny pieces by the much smaller Van Triet. He landed gently in front of Qiu-Chi after completing his spectacular performance. Qiu-Chi's eyes were still wide with utter shock. He felt like he was dreaming. Van Triet, a level 5 spellcaster, had just cleared an entire newly opened hidden dungeon. After impressively completing the hidden dungeon, Van Triet's level rose again. He had now reached level 15. Because he had even defeated the hidden boss, his conquest of the hidden dungeon was a perfect success. It took Qiu-Chi a long time before he could stand up, stumble over to Van Triet, and ask doubtfully, "Van Triet, is that really you? How did you suddenly get so strong?" Van Triet looked at Qiu-Chi for a long time, then remembered the face of the person who had shielded him in his past life, the one he had just been reminded of. A question formed in his mind. Van Triet immediately questioned Qiu-Chi. "What is your relationship with Qiu Bonbon?" Qiu-Chi's jaw dropped in shock and he shot back, "How do you know my great-grandfather's nickname?" This time it was Van Triet's turn to be shocked. He never imagined that after being reincarnated, he would meet the great-grandnephew of Qiu Bonbon, his old comrade from his past life. Just thinking of his face made Van Triet's eyes sting. He had thought that everyone he cared about had died at the hands of La Ui. Van Triet opened his mouth to ask more about Qiu Bonbon, but Qiu-Chi cut him off. "There's no need to talk about him right now. If you don't want to answer my question, you don't have to beat around the bush. There's no need to insult me like that." Qiu-Chi's expression was grim, but Van Triet had no idea why. He couldn't understand why the other boy thought he was trying to insult him. Qiu-Chi clutched his injured arm, his voice growing heavier. "Although I don't know why. You've been hiding your true strength all this time, haven't you? Well, it's time we headed back to school. Tomorrow the school's holding a trip to the Museum of Modern History. If we skip, people will notice." Van Triet clenched his fists, trying to rein in his emotions. He understood better than anyone that he was too different from this body's original owner. Qiu-Chi's conflicted reaction was proof of that. But this wasn't the time to reveal his identity, so he couldn't ask Qiu-Chi any more inappropriate questions. For example, about Qiu Bonbon. He had to avoid raising suspicion. Besides, Qiu-Chi had just said they were going to the Museum of Modern History tomorrow. Van Triet guessed it might contain some information about what happened after he died in his past life. It was definitely worth a visit. The next morning on the bus to the museum, Van Triet and Qiu-Chi sat together, but neither of them spoke, each lost in their own thoughts. Many years had passed since Van Triet's death in his previous life, and the world had changed dramatically. For instance, people could now use items from the mystic realms to power vehicles. There were also many other things Van Triet had never seen before. He recognized some things from inside the mystic realms, but logically, only items dropped by monsters should have been able to be brought outside. Speaking of monster drops, Van Triet remembered yesterday and opened his inventory. He equipped the epic-level Chimera Bone Ring. There was also a skill book titled Robust Physique. Skill books and equipment like this could be taken out of a mystic realm by storing them in one's inventory. They could even be bought, sold, and traded in the outside world. But other items native to the mystic realm couldn't be stored. They would vanish along with the realm itself once the final boss was defeated. This gave Van Triet even more to think about. He wondered what else could have possibly happened after he died in his past life. While Van Triet was lost in thought, the bus pulled up in front of the Museum of Modern History. The students all seemed incredibly excited, but his mood was the complete opposite. Because right in the middle of the courtyard outside the museum, Van Triet saw a towering statue. Even if the face wasn't a 100% match, he could still recognize it as La Ui. What was more ironic was that the students around him were lavishing it with praise, saying that La Ui was the supreme ruler of this kingdom and the glorious emperor who had put an end to the mystic realm catastrophe. And that wasn't all. Their guide went on to explain that 55 years ago, the very ground where the museum stood was the battlefield of a famous rebellion. The kingdom had been heavily invaded by the mystic realms, especially after the most terrifying SSS-rank mystic realm appeared, plunging the people into fear. But La Ui, as their emperor, personally led the army of professionals on an expedition. Despite suffering heavy casualties, they finally succeeded in conquering that horrifying mystic realm. Tragically, just as they should have been celebrating their triumphant victory, Laui was met with a long-planned rebellion, and the mastermind was none other than Van Triet. Van Triet, a man trusted by the king, ultimately became a thankless, backstabbing traitor scorned by all. The more Van Triet listened to the teacher recount the history of 55 years ago, the more jarring it sounded. Surely, none of them could ever imagine that the treacherous villain from their history books had been reincarnated and was standing right in front of them. Worse still, Van Triet had to bear this slander when it was he and his comrades who had actually conquered the SSS rank mystic realm. Laui was the real traitor. One can't even imagine the pain of being betrayed in such a situation. The guide continued, but our king overcame this sorrow, and in a final bloody battle with the help of the hero Din Kon, His Majesty successfully quelled the rebellion. It's true that history is written by the victors. The unfortunate souls who die in battle have no say in how future generations remember them, whether as heroes or villains. However, upon hearing the name Din Kon, Van Triet paused for a few seconds. He had absolutely no memory of anyone by that name. Well, you bastards are actually still alive. Suddenly, a thuggish male voice cut in. Q-Tree turned to see Din Hook, the leader of the school bullies who just the other day had nearly drowned Van Triet. They looked completely stunned to see the two of them still alive after being dragged into a mystic realm yesterday. Wait, don't tell me that Mystic Realm has already been conquered. For a new Mystic Realm to be conquered that quickly, there must have been a high-level master nearby. Another one chimed in, this time Chu Hien, one of Din Hook's cronies. Guess they got lucky, huh? Running into a master just in the nick of time. Van Triet tried to ignore them, but the provocative glares from these punks were unmistakable. Din Hook was clearly all too used to bullying other students. So even in a crowd, he didn't hesitate to flex on Q-Tree, just like he always did. I'm surprised you're still alive and walking around. Din Hook whispered into Q-Tree's ear, but you and your little friend that day, you almost got us trapped in that secret realm. How do you plan on paying that debt? Q-Chi, utterly enraged, instinctively broke free. It was clearly your fault! I'm going to report that you almost got me and Van Triet killed in there. But Q-Chi's resistance was feeble. Din Hook wasn't scared at all. He clamped a hand on his head and threatened him once more. Hey, what the hell is going through that thick skull of yours? Seems you don't get the situation at all, do you? Take a look at that statue over there. Din Hook forced Q-Tree to turn his head to the right towards the statue of Kyo-an. Also known as Kyo Bonbon, he was being trampled under the foot of the man they call a hero. In the history books, Kyo-an is a traitor, which means Q-Tree is the descendant of that traitor and has to endure all sorts of bullying, as you can see. It turns out this was also why Q-Tree felt Van Triet was trying to insult him when he mentioned Kyo Bonbon. Back to the present. You'd think Din Hook was just a common thug who was good at bullying, but it turns out he was also a great actor. He had just finished whispering threats to Q. Try when Din Hook's voice suddenly boomed. You can insult me, but you can't insult my ancestor. Q-Tree had no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, everyone was drawn in by the sound of Din Hook's voice. A crowd immediately formed around the two of them. Everyone recognized Din Hook, as he was the grandson of the hero Din Kon. As for the person next to him, many also recognized Q-Tree as a descendant of Q-An. Just based on their family backgrounds, it was enough for these onlookers to side with Din Hook without even needing to know who was right or wrong. The descendant of a traitor dares to insult a hero, the world's turned upside down. His ancestor Kyo-an harmed so many people. If the hero Din Kon hadn't stepped in, who knows how many more would have died. Seeing the crowd support Din Hook became even more shameless, shouting even louder. I don't care what you say behind my back, but how dare you humiliate my ancestor right in front of me? Q-Tree, berated by the crowd and falsely accused by Din Hook, couldn't say a word in his defense. Just then, their supervising teacher arrived, a man who claimed to be fair. But without even bothering to find out what really happened, he demanded that Q-Tree apologize to Din Hook. That hero spared your family, even if you aren't grateful. For his grace, you cannot disrespect his descendant. With that, the teacher left, leaving Q-Tree in a pit of despair. Din Hook, on the other hand, was ecstatic. Heh! After his professional-level performance, he felt that even if he beat Q-Tree to a pulp right here in front of everyone, no one would bother to stop him. They might even cheer him on because nobody helps a vicious dog when it's getting beaten. And in everyone's eyes, Q-Tree was a particularly disgusting dog. At this point, Din Hook roughly grabbed Q-Tree's hair. So do you still think a hero's descendant like me can be wrong, huh? As he spoke, Din Hook swung a fist, declaring that this punch was to reclaim his ancestor's dignity. But then something unexpected happened. because before that fist could even reach Kyo-tree's face, Din-hook himself took a full-force kick to the face. The author of that kick was none other than Van Triet, and he hadn't held back at all. It sent Din-hook tumbling backwards. Are all heroes' families this uneducated? Van Triet's voice dripped with contempt after appearing with such a shocking kick, such a heart-stopping entrance. The crowd's curiosity once again focused on him. They all knew Van Triet as a weakling who was easy to bully, but this time everyone had a feeling that he had changed completely. He even dared to hit Din-hook. What did he just say? Is he trying to insult the hero's family too? Some people murmured. Hey, I remember he's only level 5. Isn't he the weakest one in our class? Did he take the wrong medicine or something to dare hit Din-hook? Everyone was stunned by Van Triet's actions. They only knew him as a gloomy, friendless orphan who was often bullied but always endured it silently. Now it seemed his brain had broken, which was why he dared to fight back so fiercely. As for Din-hook, it seemed that kick had really hurt him. After a long moment, Din-hook managed to stumble back to his feet. He let out a self-deprecating laugh. Then he spoke in a condescending tone. You're nothing but a punching bag. You should be grateful I didn't chase you away. And yet you dare to sucker punch me when I'm not looking. Yeah. Din-hook's lackeys who had been itching for a fight wanted to take this chance to gang up and deal with Van Triet. But he was no longer that weak little level 5 spellcaster. Even though he was outnumbered several times over, Van Triet was able to rely on his overwhelming strength and speed to take them all down one by one. After leaving all of Din-hook's lackeys sprawling on the ground, Van Triet carefully landed another blow on Din-hook himself. Din-hook had just struggled to his feet, only to be knocked down to his knees by Van Triet once again. Fresh blood trickled endlessly from the corner of his mouth. Van Triet's speed was so fast that the onlookers couldn't even see his moves clearly. As for Din-hook, he was the most horrified of all. The first time could be considered a sneak attack, but just now, he and his lackeys had clearly been defeated by him fair and square. Did you see what just happened? It looks like he fell with just a push. Is this Ding Shu guy really that weak? The crowd buzzed with whispers. Although they weren't too clear, Ding Shu heard them, and he really started to lose it. Being defeated by some guy with a crappy level 5 support class was a total humiliation for him. So Ding Shu activated his Berserk skill. He entered a state that boosted his attack power by 25%, but he didn't stop there. He even took out his weapon, the Firebrand, which increased his attack power by 314 points. In a fit of rage, Ding Shu charged towards Yun Che with this flashy weapon. But on the other side, he had no intention of just standing there and taking it. Yun Che also shot forward like an arrow towards his opponent and quickly found his opening. Yun Che landed a punch straight to Ding Shu's chin. The only thought in his head was, no way. Ding Shu was knocked down again, and this time it was even more humiliating than the last. It was only then that the museum guards, alerted by the commotion, ran inside to find Ding Shu already passed out on the ground. The students were stunned by Yun Che. Everyone had said he was just a level 5 chant master, but based on what he just did, he didn't seem like a level 5 at all. A few people began to wonder if Yun Che had been hiding his true strength all along, pretending to be weak just to crush his opponents. You can't fight in this museum? What if something gets damaged? Why aren't you managing your students? The museum guard yelled. Just then, that supervising teacher rushed over, waving his hands and telling Yun Che to get back. Isn't insulting a hero enough for you? Now you dare to knock out the hero's descendant too. You're truly shameless. As he spoke, he aggressively walked over and drew his weapon. But even though he was a teacher, Yun Che didn't hold back. The chimera bone ring on his hand flashed, and Yun Che immediately shattered the opponent's weapon. The crowd was stunned once again. No one thought he could go this far. Let's not talk about who's shameless for a moment. You call yourself fair teacher, but it seems you're only going by Ding Shu's side of the story. You just want to suck up to his family, don't you? Hit right where it hurt. The supervising teacher was flustered, but still tried to argue that he wasn't being biased. As he spoke, he couldn't stop, glancing at the ring on Yun Che's hand, silently wondering, what kind of miraculous equipment is that? It blocked my weapon even though I wasn't using my full strength, so this is what he was relying on. Surely you're not that kind of person, are you, teacher? Yun Che continued to pressure him with his words. Of course. I will thoroughly investigate the cause of this conflict. Unable to do anything to Yun Che, the supervising teacher could only lower his voice and find a way to back down, secretly wondering if this kid also had powerful backing. Otherwise, how could he have gotten such an overpowered piece of equipment Only Yun Che knew that the single move just now had already damaged the Chimera Bone Ring by 37%. Although it was of epic quality, it was still just an item dropped from a level 21 boss. Using it against a level 35 teacher was a bit of a stretch, but scaring him like that had already produced a pretty good effect. With that settled, Yun Che didn't want to stay there a second longer and pulled Qiao Ji out with him amidst the buzzing of the crowd. It was understandable. He could even block a teacher's attack. That's not something a student should be able to do. After Yun Che left, the crowd finally had time to focus on Ding Shu, who was still unconscious on the ground, and hurriedly used healing spells to treat him. Outside, Yun Che was in a terrible mood. Yesterday, he had held on to the hope that his Qiao Benben was still alive, but as expected, there were no survivors. His Qiao Benben had long since been trampled under the foot of that so-called hero, that Ding Kun, and died a miserable death. After the incident just now, Qiao Ji's attitude towards Yun Che seemed to have completely changed from distant, wary, and suspicious to unconcealed admiration. Yun Che noticed this as well. He figured that if he asked Qiao Ji anything now, the boy would probably answer without any hesitation. So he cleared his throat a few times and then casually asked, "Actually, I'm not very good with history. Could you tell me about the specific achievements of that so-called hero Ding Kun?" As expected, Qiao Ji immediately started talking a mile a minute. He didn't remember all the details, but he knew that Ding Kun had apparently foreseen the plot of the great villain Yun Che. Then he secretly set up an ambush in the SSS rank secret realm to support Luo Yi, which was how they were able to resolve the entire rebellion. Hearing the keywords ambush in the secret realm, Yun Che seemed to realize something. It was true that in that final battle, he and his comrades had been ambushed. The price was that all of Yun Che's comrades died, leaving him alone to clear the rest of the secret realm. But in the end, he still died a bitter death at Luo Yi's hands. Qiao Ji continued his story, saying that Ding Kun had apparently aspired to conquer secret realms since he was a child. That's why he always trained so hard. After being promoted by the king, Ding Kun began traveling everywhere, providing aid to regions threatened by secret realms like the infamous Great Disaster of East Wall City. Hearing this, Yun Che's expression darkened even more. Coincidentally, that East Wall City was also a secret realm he had conquered in his past life. Then what about that sword? The sword that statue is holding, he asked again. The flowing cloud sword, I heard that's the sword Ding Kun used to execute the traitor Yun Che. It's supposed to be a top-tier piece of equipment. Yun Che could barely contain the rage in his heart. He ground his teeth. What a fine job Lao Yi did creating a hero named Ding Kun. All the credit and honor from Yun Che's past life, that bastard stole it all. Even his sword was taken by that guy. If that's how it's going to be, this Ding Kun, he absolutely would not let him off the hook. And so a bold idea formed in Yun Che's mind. He immediately dragged Qiao Ji to the Ding family's villa, where numerous job holders were standing guard outside. Every single one of them looked incredibly fierce. As Yun Che and Qiao Ji passed by, they were nearly spotted, but when the guards saw they were just two kids, the group of men didn't pay them much attention. Yun Che was a little surprised to see that these vagabonds actually possessed scouting skills. As for Zhao, he was extremely tense. No matter how he thought about it, loitering outside the Ding family's home was not a good idea. He was just afraid that once Ding Shu returned, he'd get the beating of his life. But Yun Che had no intention of giving up so easily, although he desperately wanted to kill that fake hero Ding Kun. After hearing the story, according to Zhao Ju, Ding Kun had found a high-level secret realm to hide in, and he had been there for a long time. He wasn't the Yun Che from his past life anymore, so he couldn't just enter and leave that secret realm as he pleased. Not to mention that high-level secret realms are always guarded by the military. To get inside, you'd need the proper access pass, and that very pass was the reason Yun Che was here now. He was certain that Ding Shu had one of those passes in his house, which is why he came to steal it. After all, Ding Kun had already stolen everything from him. What's so wrong with starting things off by stealing back a single access pass? Do they really need this many guards? After all, Ding Shu is just one of Ding Kun's dozens of descendants, Yun Che wondered. Well, they are the descendants of a hero after all. Besides, they have a secret realm inside the house, Zhao Ji replied, his voice tense. Yun Che was so surprised he had to ask again for confirmation, and Zhao Ji confirmed it. There really was a secret realm in Ding Shu's house. Apparently it wasn't that uncommon, because nowadays all the low-level secret realms have been bought up by private individuals, but you'd still have to be powerful and influential to afford one. Ding Shu even brings his own guards with him so he can go kill monsters and level up whenever he wants. Meanwhile, normal students like them have to cram into the school's secret realm, and even if they find a monster, it can be stolen from them easily. This era has really changed, Yunche mumbled. It seemed society was becoming clearly stratified. And the more power and influence you have, the higher your level gets, Zhaoji added. Normal people usually graduate high school somewhere between level 15 to 20. What's more, after leaving school, many people never get a chance to access a secret realm, so they're stuck at that level forever. If you manage to get a job related to secret realms like a miner or a ranger in a national one, you might reach level 30 or higher by the time you're middle-aged. As for Ding Shu's guards, since they can enter his family's private secret realm, their levels are probably around 30. People at higher levels than that are generally either recruited into the military or accepted into official organizations like a military academy corps. Only then can they enter a secret realm, a high-level one, and reach even higher levels. All in all, if Yunche wanted to get stronger, that access pass was absolutely essential. That's why even as Zhao Ji kept begging him to turn back and not mess with the Ding family, Yunche remained determined to steal it today. Based on Yunche's current strength, he was still a long way from being able to take down that phony hero Ding Kun, let alone the ridiculously high levels of that King Luo Yi. Still, scouting skills can be learned around level 30, and they're usually just area of effect skills. Small-scale ones like Eagle Eye, Enhanced Hearing, or Summon Spirit Mouse. But that's not enough to cover the entire area around this villa at all times. Besides, this isn't some life-or-death secret realm, so most of the guards are probably slacking off. This meant that if Yunche wanted to get inside, he was more than capable of doing it. And so without waiting for Zhao Ji, he suddenly vaulted onto the villa's outer wall. Compared to navigating the blind spots of a high-level secret realm, from his past life, infiltrating this villa was child's play for Yunche. Even if we get in, this is a private secret realm. If someone viciously strikes us down, the news would never get out. Why do we need to take such a risk? Zhao Ji continued to protest, but Yunche grabbed him by the collar and pulled him up. Zhao Ji, don't you want to change your life? He asked suddenly. Zhao Ji turned his head, avoiding Yunche's intense gaze, and stammered, Of course I do. But that's only if I can join a guild. And after joining a guild, can I really change my life? Yunche cut him off. The grandson of the traitor Zhao En. Do you really think that's possible? Your destiny can only be changed by what you do right now. After pulling Zhao Ji over the high wall, Yunche left him sitting there. He let him decide for himself whether to come along or not. Van Triet was actually a little hopeful, wondering if Qiu Bonbon's grandson would have the courage to make the same choice he did all those years ago. Qiu Qi watched Van Triet's retreating back for a long time. Though he was panicking inside, he ultimately stood up decisively. He didn't want him to walk into a death trap alone, so he decided to follow. With Van Triet leading the way, Qiu Qi followed closely behind. Based on his personal experience, Van Triet could identify areas that were clear of any traces of summoner-class scouting skills. So as long as they kept their voices down, they could slip past the guard's line of sight. Just like that, by seizing the right moment, they were able to slip inside easily. Qiu Qi was astonished to see how smoothly Van Triet avoided the guard's gazes. They had actually made it inside the Din family's grand courtyard. The door to the underground dungeon was now open before them. Without a moment's hesitation, Van Triet went in. Judging by the first few mobs, he could estimate that this dungeon was a slightly higher level than the one they had stumbled upon by the riverbank before. However, there weren't too many monsters because the Din, their family members, still cleared it out periodically. Seeing only 2 small monsters ahead, Van Triet told Qiu Qi to go and try facing the 2 zombies in front of them. Fear and refusal immediately welled up inside him. You want me to fight them? I definitely can't win. But somehow, despite his verbal refusal, Qiu Qi unconsciously rushed forward. As usual, he raised his shield facing the relentless assault from the 2 small monsters. Qiu Qi fought while crying and screaming that he wanted to go home. Why don't you try fighting back? Van Triet suggested, noticing that Qiu Qi had been purely on the defensive. What chance do I have to fight back? Qiu Qi yelled. For a level 6 player with little combat experience like him, facing 2 level 8 mobs at once was indeed a bit overwhelming. But this was precisely the situation Van Triet wanted to create to help him grow. He reassured Qiu Qi, Go on, give it a try, I'm right here. Nothing bad will happen. Van Triet's words gave Qiu Qi a strange sense of security, and so he tried to counterattack. But as soon as he targeted the first mob, Qiu Qi left a huge opening, allowing the other one to rush in for a sneak attack from behind. Luckily, he managed to dodge it, albeit a bit clumsily. But as Van Triet observed this series of movements from the side, he had to admit that Qiu Qi was actually very talented. It's just that his timid and easily frightened nature meant he'd only ever dared to defend himself. To be more specific, his subconscious judgment of spatial positioning was incredibly accurate. Because he was constantly checking for danger around him, he hadn't lost a single drop of health. Van Triet suddenly had a strong urge to talk to Kyobon, to tell him that many people can't move forward simply because they lack the courage to challenge themselves, but today he had helped his grandson take his very first steps. After struggling with the two mobs for a while, Kyuchi still had to let Van Triet deliver the finishing blow. But afterwards, he still received experience points and leveled up. The system for dividing experience points is always fair. It distributes them based on contribution. This meant that Kyuchi had genuinely contributed to weakening the opponents. Otherwise, even if Van Triet knocked them out afterwards, he wouldn't have gotten any share of the experience. "How have your attribute points changed?" Van Triet asked. "Besides spirit, everything else increased evenly," Kyuchi answered honestly. "Shouldn't a normal shield bearer add points to agility? If you don't, it's hard to hold your own in a party. No one wants to wait for a slow shield bearer because all the monsters will get stolen." Hearing Kyuchi say this, Van Triet could only sigh and advise him to look at the bigger picture. After level 60 class advancements have attribute requirements. For example, the Fortress class requires 60 points in stamina and 90 points in defense, so you can't just add points randomly. A normal person is lucky to even reach level 40 in their lifetime. "How could I even think about level 60? That's S rank," Kyuchi replied casually. But Van Triet suddenly walked over, clapped him on the shoulder, then stared at him with a look full of determination. "Starting now. You can start seriously thinking about S rank, and even surpassing it. Trust me." Van Triet's words were not baseless. In his past life, he had even surpassed SSS rank. Therefore, guiding someone as talented as Q, Cheetah level 60 was not an impossible feat. At the same time, it was also time for Van Triet to start planning his own class advancement. His class was a support type. He had to rely entirely on his hidden skill Mirror World to come into his own. Speaking of this hidden skill, Van Triet opened his status window to check on it. As it turned out, he made a new discovery: Mirror World could actually be leveled up. In the middle of the wasteland, a horde of roaring zombies rushed forward, their eyes cloudy and ferocious. A flash of light suddenly shot past, and their bodies were sliced in two. The one who had just struck was Van Triet. In the next instant, he swung his blade again, sending another one's head flying. Just as Van Triet landed, a notification screen appeared in the air. Mana-infused blade attack power increased by 70%. Remaining duration, 0 seconds. But before Van Triet could even rest, the muscular zombie whose head he had just lopped off got back up. He rushed towards it with a cold expression. "Still not dead, huh?" At this moment, the zombie's health bar was nearly depleted. At the same time, the blade in Van Triet's hand grew weaker. The attack power boost had vanished. Sensing this, he spun around and leaped away, thinking to himself, "Looks like the duration for mana-infused blade is over." A skill like this is powerful, but you can't fight with it for long periods. Fortunately, the zombie in front of him was finally dead. Van Triet panted, looking at it tiredly. "My own stamina won't let me fight for much longer either." In return, the level up notification appeared, showing I had gained 1 level. Seeing this, Van Triet thought to himself with satisfaction, but leveling up like this is already very fast compared to a normal person. Wait, I went up 2 whole levels. Just as he had that thought, his character information panel appeared, displaying all of Van Triet's attributes. At the same time, another item drop notification recorded his accomplishments. "Try it, you have slain an elite zombie. You have slain an elite zombie. You have received Monster Soul Shadow System ×2, converting to Mirror World element. Skill Mirror World has gained 2,000 experience points." Van Triet was shocked as he looked at the notification. "What's more, when I kill these monsters, I can even accumulate experience for Mirror World." After a while, he finally tapped the claim dropped items text. Just then, there was a stir behind Van Triet. He cautiously turned around. Next, Van Triet jumped onto a high ledge nearby. His movements were swift, leaving no trace. From up there, Van Triet watched the group of soldiers who had just passed him, surprised. The Dean family's patrol team is getting bigger and bigger. Thinking this, Van Triet sat down, suspecting, have they already discovered that someone snuck in? Seeing him lost in thought, Q-Tree spoke up worriedly. "There are a lot fewer monsters now. If we continue like this, the risk will only get higher and higher." In a corner, another notification popped up. Normal sluggish gauntlets. Physical defense, plus 57 magic defense, plus 31. Movement speed, minus 5%. Thinking it over, Van Triet realized he had a point. He began to reassess the situation. He's not wrong. I have to fight monsters while watching out for the guards' patrols, and I also have to calculate the timing for the Farce Blade spell. So for me right now, this is a bit of a stretch. Then Van Triet placed a hand on his chin. He glanced at his item inventory and thought about the skill book that had just dropped. The notification showed the item's description, Brick Conjuring Art Skill Book. Has the ability to create a magic brick from the void. Duration 2 seconds. Learnable class support caster. Van Triet's gaze was suddenly drawn to the purple section, which clearly displayed inverted phasing art. Consumes 30 MP. Duration 4 seconds. Can phase objects the size of a brick. He thought to himself, I guess not every inverted skill is useful for combat. At this point, Van Triet looked at another black bar mirror world. Description. An ultimate skill that can alter all other skills. Level 1. He began calculating in his head. I'm now almost 30% of the way to leveling up Mirror World. After a moment, he slowly stood up, feeling a flicker of excitement. Its new inverted skill at level 1 is already insane. After it levels up, it'll surely be even stronger. At that thought, Van Triet's pupils began to glow fiercely. He carefully observed a dark corner of the wasteland. A plan was already forming in his mind. If I can kill the lord of this secret realm, then I should be able to level up directly to level 2. Besides, I'm not even sure if I can gain experience for this skill in other secret realms. The scene changes to a strange area. In the center is an object entangled in tree roots, surrounded by a few beasts with glowing purple auras. This was the place Van Triet was heading to. I should probably go check out the Lord in the central area. He then walked straight forward along the rough stone path. Q-Tri followed him. Along the way, he thought, summon a mouse. No, an eagle-headed cat. The reconnaissance skills here are getting more and more profound. Suddenly, a strange sound was heard. It came from nearby. Van Triet immediately snapped his gaze in that direction. Before him was a scene resembling an altar. High above, a giant dark figure was bound tightly by chains, surrounded by a crowd of soldiers standing guard. Van Triet signaled to stop here. From behind, Q-Tri peeked out, his eyes wide with unconcealed shock. The secret realm's lord is being restrained. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. The lord of the school's secret realm is guarded by teachers and no one is allowed near it. I never expected mages to be helping out this time. Seeing them, Q-Tri surmised, those chains must be extremely high-grade equipment. Van Triet didn't answer, still focused on surveying the scene before them. There are quite a few guards around. If I make a move on the lord, it will definitely attract even more of them. Just as Van Triet was worrying about his level, it would be impossible to kill the lord while surrounded. Then his eyes landed on a guard taking a leak in a corner. A bold plan suddenly formed in Van Triet's mind. He covered his face and quickly leaped down. First, I have to take out the guards. At the same time, a notification sound rang out. Farce Blade's attack power increased by 150%. Remaining duration, 44 seconds. A moment later, Van Triet, carrying a disabled Luong Din, threw him down in front of Q-Tri. Next, Van Triet pulled down his hood. A powerful aura suddenly radiated from behind him. Next up is the interrogation. You'd better answer me honestly. Just seeing that was enough to make Luong Din's face go pale with fear. He quickly blurted out, "Please don't. Whatever you want to know, just ask, I'll tell you everything. The Din family doesn't pay me enough to die for them." Faced with someone like Luong Din who confessed before he was even hit, Van Triet for a moment was at a loss for words. But on second thought, this was good. I can ask the important questions first. And so, under his interrogation, Luong Din confessed everything. The pass to the hero's secret realm is in the master's room. There's a whole pile of them. It's not a rare item or anything. He was so frank because in his simple mind he figured this must be a huge fan of the heroic old master. That's why he's so worked up. However, Van Triet's expression darkened. Seeing this, Luong Din cried out in fear, "It's true, I've seen it several times." The pass is from the master's study. He's currently out with the captain of the guard. It turned out Q-Tri had already tried that method but was still stopped. Luong Din then added, "But that's just a temporary card with no personal information on it. If you don't have an acquaintance to get you in, you'll definitely be interrogated." After a moment of thought, Van Triet decisively grabbed his armor. He spoke coldly. "You don't need to worry about that." With a chilling, threatening glare, he raised his voice. He ordered Luong Din, "First take everything out of your system backpack." An unknown amount of time passed before Van Triet, grabbing the now armorless Luong Din by the collar, dragged him through the portal. Teleporting out, this is the place. outside the secret realm within the Din family's grand courtyard. As they walked, he interrogated Luong Din. "Is that incantation skill book really the only one you have on you?" Clad only in a thin layer of clothing, the man pleaded, "I really don't have another one," but afraid Van Treat wouldn't believe him. Luong Din explained, "The Din family is extremely stingy. Basically anything that drops in the secret realm has to be turned over to them. We only get to share a few scraps. All the good stuff is kept inside the house." Although he only got one book, Van Treat also reacquired a skill he had learned, Light of Absolution, a permanent passive skill. For 10 seconds after being healed, defense is increased by 3%. This effect does not stack. Next to his ear, Luong Din continued to drone on, "It's also inside the house." At the same time, one of Van Triet's purple skill slots was filled. Moonflower's Reversed Advent. Permanent passive skill for 15 seconds after being healed. Add defense is increased by 6%. This effect does not stack. A moment later, the two of them were hiding in a nearby bush to observe. Luong Din whispered, "Over there is the Din family's main house." Without a direct summons, guards like us aren't normally allowed inside. At this, he discreetly glanced over at Van Treat. Luong Din studied his expression before continuing, "That's because aside from the young Din Huck, everyone in the Din family is level 30 or higher. And their equipment is top tier. Honestly, they don't really need us for protection." But Van Triet didn't react the way he'd expected. He raised his blade menacingly at Luong Din and asked, "So if I manage to get inside, I can get the pass right?" The man stammered, But the Grand Master is in there." Next, a simple diagram was sketched out. Luong Din pointed to it and began his analysis. "That guy with the mustache. Cham is level 42. If you run into him, you'll definitely lose." Then came images of the Din family's leaders. Luong Din continued, "The Old Master and the 3 House Masters are all over level 50 and are currently away on business. If you happen to be here when they return, it will be even more dangerous." Hearing this, Van Triet's eyes narrowed, his gaze filled with tension. He focused on the Grand Master, who was level 42. Going inside meant facing a master many levels higher than himself. It seemed Van Triet had made his decision. He knocked Luong Din unconscious. A notification for Luong Din appeared, unconscious. Then he called for Q3. To the man's confused look, Van Triet ordered, "You stay here." It turned out he'd had a plan all along. "Then I just need to lure him outside." Soon after, the scene from inside the secret realm appeared before Van Triet's eyes. Standing in a dark corner outside the Domain Lord's area, he scanned his eyes over that mysterious chain. "They're using a high-level chain to control the Domain Lord. If the Lord doesn't die, the secret realm won't disappear. That way they can use it indefinitely." As he was thinking, his eyes suddenly fell upon a guard drinking water in a corner. Van Triet realized, so because it's so important, they have to post guards to watch the lock. Seeing the man was alone, he crept up beside him. Behind the guard, Van Triet coldly raised his blade. "This method is certainly cautious, but the one prerequisite for this kind of caution is that no one is willing to die to open the lock. And as for this level of iron chain, I was well acquainted with it in my past life." Then he decisively plunged the blade into the man's chest. Blood immediately sprayed from the wound. The guards outside already sensed something was wrong. They looked around in alarm. "What's going on? What happened?" By now, Van Triet was surrounded by the chains. "I have to make the Grand Master come running out of the house." Its stats appeared. Level 60 combat chain. Attack power plus 2,768. Defense power plus 1,275. Van Triet was inwardly satisfied. This method is perfect. Meanwhile, on his high throne, the secret realm's boss suddenly shot to his feet. The guards stared blankly after him. "What's happening? Why has the Domain Lord suddenly lost control?" The Grand Master quickly received a report about the disturbance. Outside the secret realm in the Din family's grand courtyard, he hastily deployed his soldiers. "Stop dawdling. Get into the secret realm and provide support now." Seeing the last of the soldiers enter the secret realm, Qiuqi finally dared to peek out from behind a distant tree trunk. Meanwhile, Van Triet had successfully acquired the level 60 chain. "I got it," he rejoiced silently. "Now getting into the house should be easy." At the same time, 2 luxury cars pulled to a stop in the Din family's grand courtyard. At the main entrance to the house, a bowing servant opened the car door. "Welcome back, second young master and young master." Stepping out of the black car was A Din Hao level 42 second master of the Din household who sported a mustache. Behind him was Din Huck, his face bruised. "It's nothing serious, Dad. Why'd you come get me? I just wasn't paying attention for a second and that bastard Van Triet." Din Hao cut him off coldly. "Picking you up was just convenient, that's all." Din Hao's attitude changed in an instant as he approached the white car. He opened the car door respectfully. "Miss Van Sa, if you please." Stepping out of the car were Van Sa and Van Am. The two strode forward following Din Hao. Din Hao gestured ahead, trying to curry favor. "Welcome to my humble abode." At that moment, Qiu Lei was there, bowing in greeting. And then his expression suddenly changed. One second, he was all smiles, the next his face was twisted into a terrifying grimace. And then, Din Hao walked over and kicked Qiu Lei squarely. He roared in anger, "Don't just stand there blocking the way!" After that, they simply ignored Qiu Lei, who was left sprawled on the ground, and walked into the house. From a distance, Qiu Tree's eyes took in the entire scene. Seeing Qiu Lei's pathetic state, he froze for a moment, not even noticing that Van Triet had already returned. "What's wrong? Did you decide not to go in because you saw the Din family returning?" Filled with curiosity, he walked over to Qiu Tree. "What's with that expression?" Hearing Van Triet's voice, Qiu Tree quickly composed himself and changed the subject. "How did you get over there so fast?" Van Triet hadn't expected him to ask that. He held up his hand and explained, "That thing. It's a realm lord after all. Even at level 30, it's hard to capture one alive. Based on the current situation," Van Triet concluded, "so there's no need to panic. They won't be able to recapture it within the next half hour." After saying that, he remembered Qiu Tree's earlier expression. "By the way, what was it you saw?" His face fell, his eyes filled with troubled thoughts as he glanced behind him. In a corner of the Ding family's courtyard was Qiu Lei level 17 bowing and trying to curry favor with a man in a black suit. Qiu Tree's voice faded. "That's my younger uncle." Qiu Tree was flustered, unable to meet Van Triet's gaze. He turned back, his face grim, and continued, "Back when our ancestor rebelled, his entire clan was wiped out." Qiu Tree's voice grew sad. "But even so, they shouldn't have to face such humiliation from those who remain." Hearing this, Van Triet's expression wavered slightly. That event had triggered a series of misfortunes for the Qiu family. Ever since then, our family has constantly endured the malice of the Empire. Those devils didn't even spare the women. Qiu Tree's voice became more agitated. Under the shady command of Hero Ding Kun, the bullying became more and more severe. All of this led to the inevitable downfall of the Qiu family in the end. We could only become servants of the Ding family. At that moment, Qiu Tree bit his lip, trying to suppress his emotions. Across the courtyard, Qiu Lei was kicked to the ground again. He's occasionally dragged out to display the power and kindness of the hero's family. If the Qiu family wants to live, we can only watch the Ding family's every move. We can only bow and scrape, barely surviving. Then Qiu Tree recalled an image of his father when he was a host. "My parents originally thought about trying to change things, but that man, he just became an old man, with a potbelly screaming, 'Run, run, run,' all day. In the end, my father lost his mind and went insane. Following his brother's example, Qiu Lei became the groveling person he is today. And my uncle? He completely became the Ding family's dog." Recalling those painful memories, Qiu Tree's whole body trembled involuntarily. He hesitated. "Me coming in here, was it really the right thing to do?" Seeing Qiu Tree in this state, Van Triet didn't press him. He walked decisively past him. "I'm going inside." Seeing Van Triet's determination, Qiu Tree called out from behind to stop him. "Ding Shu's father is in there right now. He's level 42 and fully equipped. If he finds you, you're dead for sure." But Van Triet was not one to give up so easily. He replied bluntly, "In an era where secret realms are controlled like this, if you don't take risks, there's no hope of changing the situation." Qiu Tree was left speechless by Van Triet's words. He pressed on. "Besides, there are things that you'll never achieve if you're always hesitating." With that, Van Triet turned his head back. His face, illuminated by the sunlight, held a peculiar beauty. "Qiu Tree, I can help you change things. But first, you have to make a choice for yourself. I choose to fight, but I won't force you." Even after Van Triet said that, Qiu Tree was still afraid. He tried to back out, but they're a great family with overwhelming power. Can we really stand against them? Knowing Qiu Tree still had his reservations, Van Triet turned and left decisively. He seemed to want to prove a point. "What I want to stand against." Then Van Triet quickly jumped down, leaving a stunned Q-Tree behind, his hair blowing in the wind. In an instant, his figure vanished, leaving only his resolute words echoing. Is this entire empire at the same time? Inside the Ding family's living room, Ding Hao was asking a nearby maid, how did the Realm Lord escape its bindings? Sitting across from him, Van Saw delicately sensed the issue and spoke up. Is this an inconvenient time, Uncle? We can always visit another day. Hearing this, Ding Hao waved his hand dismissively, a fawning smile on his face. No, not at all. My older brother can handle it. How could a trivial secret realm be more important than Miss Van Saw? But fearing Van Saw would refuse, Ding Hao immediately invoked the reputation of his superiors. Besides, after hearing that you were willing to come, my father and third uncle started heading home, while he was busy rambling on, so we still have more than enough people to handle this problem. On top of that, I've also contacted Hero Ara. He is also very, very eager to meet you. A shadow had silently approached on the second floor. That shadow was Van Triet. He quickly put two and two together. Hero Ara. Is that Hero Ding-kun? Van Triet recalled the scene of Q-Tree being blocked at the secret realm's entrance. I remember. To enter a hero's secret realm, you need a pass and a guide. At this, Van Triet's gaze fell upon Van Saw. He thought to himself, furthermore, judging by how they're treating her, her status must be quite high. Van Triet silently repeated that name in his mind. He suddenly made a very interesting discovery. Vansa. Her surname is Van, same as mine. What a coincidence. Having figured out quite a bit, Van Triet quietly stood up. For now, I still have to focus on the pass. That's what matters. Just as he was feeling confident in his skills, Van Saw downstairs had already noticed the movement above. In the wide hallway, two maids were walking and talking. Only after they had passed did Van Triet emerge from his hiding spot. In the blink of an eye, he found the room containing what he wanted. It seemed this was the Ding family's study. The room was filled with tall, neatly arranged bookshelves. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard, the head of the Ding family had finished his work and was returning with his soldiers. We've finally subdued the Realm Lord. Outside the secret realm, he stuck his hands in his pockets, talking as he walked. Someone intentionally released it, but we can't find a trace of them now. This is Dinyak, level 42 patriarch of the Din family with the straight-line mustache. He continued a risk this big. It can't possibly be just for one piece of high-level gear. Suddenly, as if he had figured something out, Dinyak sternly commanded his soldiers, surround the house first. Dinyak's eyes held the authority of a family head. He carefully considered that the young lady had agreed to be a guest, so under no circumstances should she be disturbed. As for Van, Triet was still rummaging through the study, his impatience showing on his face. Nothing! Didn't they say there was a whole pile of them? In his urgency, Van Triet looked at his hand as a notification text appeared. You have used the phasing skill. He then pointed at the lock on the drawer, and it began to glow. This is the effect of the phasing skill. It can dematerialize objects up to the size of a brick for a duration of 4 seconds. Van Triet quickly pulled it open. Inside, there were only a few old books. He wondered, diaries then. Van Triet casually picked up a yellow book, a hint of excitement in his eyes. So the layer of old books on top was meant to hide the skill books underneath. Van Triet celebrated internally. These are all high-quality skill books. The attribute panel popped up at the same time, skill book slowing light. Description slows enemy units by 20% in a 20-meter radius around you. Classes that can learn it. Priest Support Mage. Outside in the Din family's large courtyard by the entrance to the inner house, a large number of soldiers had already surrounded the house on Din Ngak's orders. This strange sight made Q-Tree, hiding behind a tree, wonder, why are all the guards running over here? Don't tell me they found us. It seemed he had guessed correctly, as his eyes immediately filled with worry. As I thought, this is still way too dangerous. The guards were growing in number. If Van Triet doesn't get out now, he won't have a chance to escape. Having seen what happened to his father, and Uncle Q-Tree broke out in a cold sweat. If I don't run now, and they find me, they'll just have another excuse. His mind flashed back to the day his mother tried to flee with him to his father's frantic voice, "Run, run, run, run!" At the thought, Q-Tree's hand clenched into a fist. He decided, I should probably just leave quietly. At least I can protect myself. Just as Q-Tree was hesitating, Van Triet's words from earlier echoed in his ear. I can help you change, but first you have to make a choice for yourself. And with that, Q-Tree decisively tore off his face covering and yelled as loud as he could. Without a doubt, the sound attracted the patrolling guards, over there after him. They quickly called for more men and chased after Kiotri. Van Triet, I'll draw them away. You absolutely cannot let them find you. Meanwhile, Van Triet had just leaped out from a broken glass window. He smiled as he looked down. Looks like you managed to overcome yourself and choose to fight, huh? With a high leap. Van Triet looked like an arrow flying through the sky. He yelled to get the soldiers' attention. I have the chain and the skill books, come and get them, if you've got the guts. Seeing Van Triet, the guards hurriedly changed direction. Quick after him! Van Triet's skill icon was glowing. Slowing light consumes 50 EM 60-second duration. It reduces the speed of enemy units within a 20-meter radius around you by 20%. This skill let him leap about freely without fear of being caught. A moment later, Van Triet used Hasting Light consumes 50 MP 60-second duration. Increases the speed of allied units within a 30-meter radius around you by 30%. Din Nyak quickly realized the direction he was running seemed wrong. He shouted in alarm. Squad 2, Squad 3, get back here for reinforcements, protect the realm. Lord's secret area. He's not running outside, he's heading for the secret area. Kyo Tri, who had been running, suddenly stopped. He watched Van Triet with curiosity. Why is he leading everyone back in the opposite direction? Van Triet glanced behind him as he ran. It turned out he had planned this all along. With so many guards lured outside, the Realm Lord's secret area must have already been brought under control. Sure enough, the entrance to the secret area was completely unguarded. Van Triet headed straight inside. If the Realm Lord was subdued, it must have been after a massive battle. That means the Realm Lord's health is at its lowest point right now. Suddenly, the mirror world appeared before Van Triet. Description: an ultimate skill that can reverse everything. Skill level 1. Since I can get in there, his spirits soared with confidence and excitement. If I kill it, I can level up the mirror world. In the Din family's guest room, the atmosphere had become strangely quiet. Van Sa elegantly lifted her cup of hot tea. She intentionally reminded Din Hao, the commotion outside is pretty loud. Uncle, you really don't have to stay here to keep me company. Din Hao raised a hand to explain, his cunning eyes full of schemes. It's just a petty thief. My older brother is dealing with it, so everything will be fine. But Din Hao had no idea about the chaotic scene unfolding elsewhere. Ding Nyak was trying to force his way through. Get out of my way. You're all too slow. Charge straight toward the Realm Lord. In his rush, he even ran headfirst inside while giving orders. Ranger and Archer, you're with me. Chase that intruder. In a flash, Din Nyak had almost caught up to Van Triet. A panel displaying his own stats appeared in Van Triet's mind. It showed his agility was already at 25. Every class gets 3 extra points upon leveling up, and I've put half of those into agility. Then several turquoise arrows shot out from around Van Triet. He looked on with satisfaction. Plus, there's the acceleration from the sub-skill. Van Triet didn't dare to stop leaping to the other side of the secret area while calculating in his head. Around level 30, usually only archers and rangers can keep up with me. A moment later, Van Triet found the boss. It was temporarily sealed on the ground. Crippled status. Seeing the crowd surrounding the boss, Van Triet immediately figured it out. The Realm Lord is sealed here. Are they afraid someone will kill it? As expected, this is its weakest moment. Thinking this, he brazenly revealed himself. As long as I focus all my power, I can finish it in an instant. When the soldiers and mages saw Van Triet, they called out to him and immediately formed a battle line. They formed an orderly line in front of Van Triet, tanks in the front, mages in the middle, and archers in the rear. Facing them, Van Triet didn't flinch at all. He created a magic circle around himself, chaotic thorns, and then directed them to charge at the crowd. The other side's formation fell into chaos. What kind of skill is this? How come I've never seen anything like it before? Notification sounds chimed one after another around the soldiers. Judgment failed. Judgment failed. Immune. Judgment failed. Judgment failed. A soldier in a helmet was still confident. This is a skill that causes abnormal status effects. A human's resistance is nothing like a monster's, so there's no way we'd be affected that easily. But the commotion from behind immediately made him eat his words. It seemed a mage had been affected and was now relentlessly attacking his own allies. This is bad, someone's been hit. Sure enough, that mage's status bar displayed chaos. Impossible. That soldier screamed, the status effect probability on this skill is insane. Taking advantage of the chaos, Van Triet slipped right through them while the soldiers were preoccupied with the mages. He passed through them with ease as if no one was there. The bigger the crowd like this, beam. the easier it is to reach the low-health lord. Even if they managed to spot Van Triet, their bodies were quickly entangled by the thorny vines. They started yelling at each other. He's broken through. Where's the crowd control tanks? Why aren't you stopping him? This skill. Don't use it on me, I'm busy. Van Triet could only look at them with disdain. What a disorganized mob. They have zero combat experience. Have they gotten this soft after such a long time at peace? A moment later, Van Triet reached the final defensive line. The commander above saw him and ordered, "Hold him down. He's just one guy." As Van Triet frantically hacked through the layers of the seal, the commander's voice continued to echo, "Just surround him, he's a dead man." At that moment, Din Ngak arrived. With a grim face, he repeated, "That's right, hold him steady for what's next." A golden armor quickly formed around Din Ngak. "Let me finish him." At the same time, his status window appeared, displaying his impressively high stats. Din Ngak powerfully swung his axe high towards Van Triet, his entire body radiating an overwhelming aura. Raging fire shockwave. Even though Van Triet's hand was busy parrying another man's sword, it couldn't stop him from giving Din Ngak a provocative look. "Bring it on!" On Van Triet's otherwise cold face, his eyes burned brightly. "Good." Then he spun around and unleashed his magic chains. "Even though my level isn't high enough to wield this, I can't let it just be a stat stick. Besides, this thing is a terrifying level 60 weapon." Instantly, the two powers collided in midair. On one side, the fist formed by Van Triet's chains, and on the other, Din Ngak's magical energy. From the impact of the terrifying collision, Van Triet was thrown backward, while Din Ngak's blast of energy ricocheted directly into the seal behind him. This was his plan all along. "I'll use the force of this massive impact to conveniently shatter the seal." Seeing the seal broken, Van Triet immediately dashed towards the boss. "Here I come!" He even yelled out a taunt. "Thanks for the help, old man." Din Ngak was so furious a vein throbbed on his temple. "You dare." But was there anything Van Triet wouldn't dare? He finished the boss with a single slash and cheerfully exclaimed, "I'll be taking this lord's experience points, thank you very much." As the boss's status bar switched to deceased, the power around Van Triet surged. A level up notification appeared, level increased by 3. All of Van Triet's stats received a significant boost. Mirror World. Description: the ultimate skill that can reverse all things. Skill level, level 2. Mirror World experience is full. Leveled up. Din Ngak furiously ground his teeth. Forgetting his composure entirely, he screamed, "You goddamn bastard!" Then Din Ngak led the charge and his men rushed in right after him, surging forward to capture him. In front of them, Yun Che's clothes were stained with the boss's blood, yet he remained calm as he pressed the notification screen. Mirror World Level 2. Description: a supreme skill that can reverse all things. Use. So this is it. Just as Din Ngak's axe swept past, Yun Che vanished without a trace. He faltered for a moment as space and time suddenly froze. Din Ngak's men were suddenly frozen in place. Did I fail? A moment later, within a space where everything looked strangely ethereal, the mirror world Yun Che appeared. Entering for the first time, he was a bit curious and began to explore the area. What is this place? Just then, a notification bar suddenly appeared. Mirror Walk. Time remaining 29 minutes and 5 seconds. Yun Che was surprised. A world inside the mirror? Yun Che understood instantly. No wonder it's the reverse of the real world. Next, he curiously waved his hand at the face of the person in front of him, and it dissipated like smoke. But these guards, it seems they're just delusions. Suddenly, a few glowing stones on the ground especially caught Yun Che's eye. The moment he picked one up, this isn't an illusion. Its attribute panel appeared. Mirror stone. Can be collected. Can be taken out. Yun Che was shocked. It can be taken out. Seeing the stone glowing in his hand, he finally believed what he was seeing. So after this skill reaches level 2, I can come to the mirror world and take things with me. With that thought, he decisively took it with him. Yun Che silently hoped then there should be a change in the system, right? Sure enough, a skill list popped up in front of him. What are these skills? Besides the skills I've already learned, there were also a few skills Yun Che didn't recognize. He doubtfully clicked on one. Not activated. The screen quickly displayed the words, base skill not yet learned. Yun Che's eyes grew thoughtful. Base skill. It seems what's displayed here are the reversed versions of all my skills. This strange new world spurred Yun Che on to learn more. He seemed to have figured part of it out. I just have to learn the base skills in reality to activate them, huh? Reverse skill level 1 was just a crippled version of level 2's function. After that, Yun-Che's finger slid down the list. He mused to himself. It seems I can choose the powerful skill combinations I want to learn first. It's best to plan my progression path for what comes next. Just as Yun-Che was concentrating, a strange noise suddenly came from behind him. He looked toward it warily. Unexpectedly, what appeared before Yun-Che were a few figures that looked quite human. Souls, Yun-Che thought to himself upon seeing those hovering shapes. He had a bold idea. Other souls can exist here too. While Yun-Che was lost in thought, a grotesque skeleton charged swiftly toward him. Yun-Che noted its ferocious appearance and swung the blade in his hand. So it's turned into a soul monster, huh? Next, the blade in Yun-Che's hand quickly carved beautiful slashes across the soul monster's body. After that, he charged forward. Yun-Che continued to slash his blade through its body. Doesn't seem very strong. Just as he finished off the soul monster, a notification bar suddenly appeared. Necro contract. You can sign a contract with a soul. After signing, you can bring it out of the mirror world to fight for you. Contract limit no more than 20. Note the maximum level of this soul is your maximum level. Sign. Cancel. Yun-Che was curious. A contract. But the conditions were truly tempting. Yun-Che read it, his eyes glued to the screen. So after defeating a spirit, I can take it as a summon and bring it outside. Yun-Che took out the stone from before. He froze for a second, thinking to himself, it's not just the stone. It seems Mirror World Level 2 allows me to take items from here, and even spirits, and bring them into reality. A moment later, Yun-Che put everything away. He looked up, looking quite intrigued. How interesting. Outside in the real world, the men from the Ding family were searching around confused. The secret realm has disappeared. Why hasn't that guy shown up yet? They had spread out to search everywhere, but they couldn't find Yun-Che at all. How could he just vanish into thin air? Could this be a wanderer's hidden skill? Hearing that, Gao Leng, who was standing to the side, coldly tossed the knife in his hand and spoke up. Impossible. Our hidden skills have a physical form and a time limit. It's not like he would be completely undetectable. As if finding an outlet for his anger, Ding Ngak furiously rushed over and grabbed Gao Leng's head. Then you tell me why. Why with so many of us here? Did we let him get away? If we can't find him, you can compensate me for this secret realm. Just then, Yun-Che reappeared in the real world. The movement quickly caught Ding Ngak's attention. He glared over. Before Ding Ngak stood Yun-Che in the flesh, calmly reading a notification panel. So the time limit for mirror walk is up, huh? Do you return to the same spot when you exit? Or are there other conditions? After confirming it was him, Ding Ngak, filled with resentment, shouted without a moment's hesitation. Yun-Che didn't even bother to dodge. A stream of blue light formed in his hand. He spoke as if giving an order. Don't be in such a hurry. After being surrounded for so long, I should at least give you a little parting gift, right? And then, from Van Triet's hand, countless monster souls bound by contract flew out as undead. He declared arrogantly, now have a taste of my undead legion. This seemed to be the first time the soldiers had ever seen undead. They awkwardly raised their shields to block. What are these things? Ding Ngak, however, remained calm and stepped forward. As expected of an experienced man, he recognized them at a glance. They're demons. Don't panic. They're nothing more than undead-type monsters. I've seen plenty of these before. Hearing his words, the soldiers raised their shields and began to fight back against the undead. Just as the two sides clashed, a soldier suddenly cried out in surprise, "It has a status window, and it's only level 20. This made Ding Ngak even more confident. He smirked and repeated, "See, I told you not to panic." Ding Ngak pointed at the undead and commanded, "Counterattack! Capture them, and everyone gets a raise." The moment he said it, the army's morale skyrocketed, and they all charged forward at once. But before they could even do anything, Van Triet's figure had already vanished. The soldiers looked at each other, bewildered. Where'd that guy go? It turned out Van Triet had already escaped. For now, this was his only option, as these undead were still too low level. In truth, deep down, Van Triet was aiming for a higher goal. Perhaps an undead with blue armor, for example. If he could acquire a higher-grade undead than that rabble, would be absolutely no match for him. However, that wouldn't be easy because Van Triet had already realized something. Of all the undead that could be found inside, the 20 strongest had already been contracted. Besides, that strange world, as good as it was, had a few problems. One of them was, "Bitched, the mirror world had a search boundary." Van Triet recalled the notification from back then. "You have reached the search boundary. After entering the mirror world, you can only operate within a 200-meter radius." After a moment of thought, Van Triet decisively dashed off. He silently resolved to find time to search other places within the mirror world, to see if he could find any higher-level undead. As he was walking, a scene between two soldiers in the trees caught his attention. To his surprise, the person being held by the collar was Kyo Tree. The soldier facing him was shouting, "You think you can get away? You think I'd let you slip by? I wonder what the reward for catching you is?" Seeing him in danger, Van Triet swiftly landed a slash across the soldier's body. Blood from the wound splattered onto Kyo Tree, his eyes wide with panic. Realizing time was short, Van Triet had no choice but to pull Kyo Tree along. "Come on, let's go!" A flicker of anticipation crossed his eyes. Van Triet said cheerfully, "They're all in chaos now. We should head back and check on our haul." Back in the Mystic Realm, the battle between the Undead Legion and the Ding family's army was still raging fiercely. Since the undead were only level 20, they didn't seem to pose much of a challenge. In a flash, most of the undead had fallen. A soldier pointed his sword at the shattered skeletons scattered on the ground, his voice tinged with confusion. "These demonic things aren't even that strong." Suddenly, that undead rose again. The soldiers yelled, "But how can it come back to life after we already killed it?" Just as they were all confused, the undead suddenly turned into blue smoke and dissipated. Dinghua sighed, then stepped forward and explained, "These are all summons. Even if they can be revived, it definitely consumes magic points. So we just need to kill them a few more times and that'll be it." Text appeared at Dinghua's feet. Dinghua, level 52, third head of the Ding family. At the same time, back at the Ding family estate, an old voice, hoarse yet full of authority, rang out. "Has Lady Van Sa returned?" At that moment, inside the Ding family home, a tense Dinghao was bowing deeply. "I'm sorry, Father. I wasn't able to keep her here." In truth, the intruder was far too brazen. It turns out that when Van Triet jumped through the window, he was right there below. Not only did he manage to escape the house, but he was shouting wildly and even smashed one of our windows. Hearing this, Ding Dan's eyes narrowed. He asked sharply, "An intruder managed to get inside the house?" This was Ding Dan, level 57, son of the hero Ding Kon and patriarch of the Ding family. Ding Dan berated him loudly. "Not only did you fail to catch him, you don't even know what he looks like. Is this how you all handle things?" Ding Hao bowed even lower. "It was my failure." However, Ding Hao quickly composed himself, raised his head, and reported with enthusiasm. "However, Lady Van Sa has agreed to go to the hero's mystic realm. At the very least, the matter with the A family will proceed without issue." This was exactly what Ding Dan wanted to hear. His expression softened, but his voice remained stern. "Find out who that intruder was, and you must kill them." A moment later, as if remembering something, Ding Dan urgently prompted Ding Hao, "Quickly go see if anything else was stolen. Elsewhere." Van Triet had successfully obtained the pass. He stared at the card in his hand for a long time. Even though he had it, there was still one problem troubling him. He had the pass, but he still needed someone who could get him into the hero's mystic realm. After careful consideration, Van Triet placed the card back on the table. He subconsciously glanced out the window. "But there's no rush for that. This time at the Ding family's house, I managed to reach level 20. At the same time, Van Triet was taking stock of his inventory. It had increased significantly after the infiltration. Although the Chimera Bone Ring is basically broken. Information appeared: Chimera Bone Ring, damage 94%. But I also managed to get more than 10 of the skill books he had hidden in his house. Then, from the pile of skill books, Van Triet pulled out a blue one. He thought to himself, Chanter is a support skill. The skill slot lit up again. Learned Battle Chant. K, cost 40 MP. Duration 60 seconds. Critical rate plus 8%. Critical damage plus 15%, defense minus 20%. Not only that, but Van Triet also realized he could use these skills to his advantage. He could supplement his own attributes. At the same time, a purple skill slot also lit up. Reversed Shield Chant. Cost 40 MP. Duration 60 seconds. D. Critical rate minus 12%. Critical damage taken minus 23%. Defense plus 30%. Thinking this, Van Triet chuckled softly. Satisfied, he flipped open the book in his hand. When the time comes, he could crush enemies of the same level just by relying on his own stats. Boosting combat power. At that moment, the notification bar appeared. Passive skill, permanent strength +3 upon defeating a dungeon boss. Unexpectedly, it also brought Van Triet another surprise. Corrupted Knight's Armor, level 30. Type Body Armor. Rarity Rare, Spirit -3. Physical Defense +900. Magic Defense +1,500. He calculated silently. Besides that, Lord had also dropped a piece of equipment that he could use later. At the same time, this trip to the Din family helped Van Triet achieve his initial goal. And most importantly, the Mirror World described the ultimate skill that could reverse everything. Skill level 2 meant that the Mirror World itself had reached level 2. At this, Van Triet's eyes turned serious. He remembered the statue from back then. The summoned undead creatures he had captured had significantly increased his combat power. But it's still not enough. Based on the style of equipment on the statue, the hero must have been at least an S-rank class branch of the warrior type. Knowing this, Van Triet silently resolved that he had to at least get a zero-cost undead contract and level up to over 50 to have a chance of killing him. Q-Tree beside him noticed his strange expression and asked, "Van Triet, they won't be able to chase us, right?" The question interrupted Van Triet's thoughts. He smirked, his voice filled with confidence. "Don't worry, I lost them. And they didn't see our faces, so we're fine." But Q-Tree only seemed to half listen. He averted his gaze, his body still rigid with fear. Noticing the heavy atmosphere, Van Triet looked over. "Still uneasy, huh? Well, it's tough for someone his age." He called out softly, "Q-Tree." Then Van Triet unexpectedly asked a question. "Are there any dungeons nearby where a powerful expert has died?" Q-Tree was puzzled. "A dungeon where an expert died?" "Yeah." Van Triet nodded in reply. He explained, "That's right. I want to find a higher-level dungeon to level up. As for the expert, you'll find out when the time comes." It seemed Q-Tree knew something. He placed a hand on his chin, pondering. "Speaking of a dungeon where an expert died, there actually is one." As he said that, Q-Tree's face scrunched up. He answered hesitantly, "But that one is our school's dungeon. There's no way we can sneak in." Hearing this, Van Triet said nothing more. He rested his chin on his hand, thinking as he looked outside. "A dungeon monopolized by the school, huh? In that case, I'll just have to use some special methods." An unknown amount of time passed. A voice filled with astonishment rang out. "This is for me." Lu Qian stared stunned at the books Van Triet had given him. A purple rare-quality skill book. "And it's even for my wanderer class?" This was his private residence. Seeing the gift, Lu Qian gave a slight cough. "Looks like this Van Triet kid really has some powerful backing." Despite this, he put on a show. "The school's dungeon can't just be opened for anyone anytime. And I can't just open a back door for you." Lu Qian maintained his posture while discreetly hiding the skill book. In the end, though, he offered him a way in. "This dungeon is only open to graduating students right now. Generally, underclassmen aren't qualified to participate." In front of Lu Qian, Van Triet, he was dressed simply yet stood out remarkably. However, if a student is exceptionally outstanding, they can also join the expedition with a teacher's recommendation. Lu Qian promised, "I will do my best to help you get that spot." Sure enough, with the right incentive, things moved quickly. In no time, Van Triet had arrived at the dungeon. He appeared calm, blending in with the crowd of students as he slowly walked past the voices, whispering amongst themselves, "This might be the last dungeon I ever get to enter. I have to grind as many monsters as I can." Nearby, there were also a few students offering praise. "If it weren't for the hero's gift, we wouldn't have this opportunity. Thank you, hero." It was only when he got close to the dungeon entrance that Van Triet realized something about this dungeon was off right then. Facing him and Q-Tree, Lu Qian gestured sideways and announced, "This is the hero's dungeon gifted to our school by the hero himself. Legend has it the hero once fought in here. Perhaps there are still traces of him inside somewhere." Van Triet listened calmly. In contrast, Q-Tree suddenly shrank back into a dark corner, a look of horror on his face. It turned out the history of this dungeon was the very beginning of the fall of the Q family. Q-Tree thought in a panic. The hero's dungeon. Isn't this the dungeon where the hero bravely slayed the traitor Q-An? In this awkward situation, Q-Tree watched Van Triet's back in confusion, wondering if he should say something. Just then, Lu Qian finished his introduction. He patted a passing student on the shoulder. "But the level of this dungeon is very low. Just remember to be mindful of your strength, everyone." "Xiao Ta, I'll take everyone." Hearing him say that, Xiao Ta gritted his teeth, his eyes showing his dissatisfaction. Then how am I supposed to level up? Liu Jian deliberately pushed Xiao Ta towards the secret realm. All right, stop complaining. The secret realm is open, hurry up and get in. But he had already noticed Yun Che. An underclassman is here too, huh? As he stepped onto the stairs, Xiao Ta rubbed his forehead, glancing back in disgust. So annoying. Now I have to drag 2 more pieces of dead weight along. Xiao Ta then put on his big brother act, pointing and giving orders. You two, once we're inside, stay behind me. Don't cause any trouble for your big bro here. If you die, it's not my problem. Yun Chi paid him no mind. He had more important things to worry about. A level 20 to 40 secret realm, why would there be? In the dark space, Yun Che's sharp eyes gleamed. He could feel this dangerous sensation. After some time, the group of students passed through the gate and entered the heroic secret realm. The students in the lead suddenly stared to the side, and Xiao Ta cried out in surprise. What is that Yun Yin and Yun Sa are here too? It turned out Yun Yin and Yun Sa had appeared in the secret realm at some point, which slightly surprised them. Another person added, aren't they just underclassmen? Then he looked at Chao Ji and Yun Che with a disgusted expression. Look at these 2 underclassmen. Aren't they here too? Speaking of which, a contemptuous smile appeared on Xiao Ta's face. He rested his hands behind his head and continued. If Yun Sa and her group could be transferred over here, that would be great. Leading girls gives me more motivation. A rosy thought suddenly popped into Xiao Ta's head. He closed his eyes in anticipation. Maybe he could even... From behind Xiao Ta, Guangshu bluntly threw cold water on him. Stop dreaming. They're probably over level 30. We're the ones who asked them for help. He even kindly added, besides, don't even think about punching above your weight. Hearing this, Xiao Ta immediately pouted and waved his hand. I know. I was just kidding. Although he said that, he couldn't stop his eyes from looking towards Yun Sa and Yun Yin. It would have been better not to look. The moment he looked, the 2 of them were already walking towards Xiao Ta. It left him a bit stunned. Xiao Ta's lips moved about to call out, Yun Sa. But she walked right past him and stopped in front of Yun Che. Seeing this, his heart skipped a beat in surprise. But his face showed no emotion. This person is... When he got a clearer look, Yun Che realized who was in front of him. The guest from the Ding family's house. Her status isn't low. Why is she approaching me? At that thought, he immediately tensed up. Does she know the original owner of this body? Or is she here to stand up for Dingshu? Yun Sa didn't notice Yun Che's state of mind. She tucked her hair back and smiled lightly. I saw you at the Memorial Museum yesterday. Your moves weren't bad and your voice is very distinctive. This action from Yun Sa was completely different from what Yun Che had expected. He wondered with suspicion, is she just making small talk? Just then Yun Sa suddenly leaned close to his face, her sharp eyes gleaming. She whispered, even the part of your voice mixed in with the sound of shattering glass was perfectly clear. Hearing these words, Yun Che froze, his mind filled with worry. This person figured out who I am just from the 2 phrases I yelled yesterday. By the time Yun Che composed himself, Yun Sa had already turned around and changed her equipment. She waved her greeting finished. That's all for today. Next, Yun Yin also changed her equipment. Yun Sa pulled her hood down low as if to signal, we'll go explore ahead. Behind them, Yun Che had regained his composure and was quietly analyzing the situation. She recognized me, but instead of exposing me in front of everyone, she told me this way. Is she warning me, thinking this Yun Che recalled the other day in the living room? Ding Shu was there too. Indeed, that Ding Shu guy could also recognize our voices. At this, Yun Che's gaze turned distant. He thoughtfully placed a finger on his chin. But as long as the Ding family doesn't come after us for a while, it should be fine. With my leveling speed, I won't have to worry for much longer. After careful consideration, Yun Che finally made a decision. If they're showing goodwill, then I should give them a warning too. So to thank Yun Che also offered a warning. You two should be careful. This secret realm has a dangerous aura. Reminded by him, Yun Sa now vaguely noticed the strangeness in the air. Come to think of it, there is indeed a very strange feeling here. Although she felt Yun Che's words made sense, Yun Sa just replied politely, based on my level, I don't really need to pay attention to it, but thank you for the warning. As Yun Sa and Yun Yin's figures gradually disappeared, Liu Qing spoke up. Is that really Yun Sa? Zheng Yu couldn't hide her curiosity either. Isn't she supposed to be really cold? So why was she like that with him? After that, the group quickly surrounded Yun Che and Liu Qing interrogated him. Hey, how do you know Yun Sa? Do you two know each other? Zheng Yu also chimed in with a request. Yeah, that's right. Can you introduce us? However, Yun Che didn't want to get involved with them. He quickly slipped away from the crowd and waved his hand. "Sorry, we have to go." Hearing this, Liu Qing shouted after him, "Go! You guys want to go off on your own! The monsters here are at least level 20! And Quan, who was next to them, also advised the two underclassmen, "You could die if you run into even a small random monster." Just as they were about to rush forward, Xiao Ta suddenly put out his hand to stop them. "Just let them go!" A dark expression appeared on his face as Xiao Ta said strangely, "Anyone connected to Yun Sha can't be bad, so I don't think their levels will be that low." Liu Qing didn't notice his odd behavior. She reminded him worriedly, "But Teacher Liu told us to watch out. So why are their levels still—" Before Liu Qing could finish, Xiao Ta cut in with a low voice. "Don't forget our true purpose for coming here. The fewer people who know about that place, the better." He stood up straight. Xiao Ta reminded them in a low voice, "That place has rare crystals. Do you really want to share them with those guys? Besides, everyone is equipped with an emergency flare gun, so let's not bother with them." Persuaded by his words, the other three immediately fell silent. Only when he turned his back did Xiao Ta reveal his malicious face. He was simply jealous of Yun Che. Why the hell does a normal kid like him get to know Yun Sha? Turns out Xiao Ta had long been blinded by his selfish desires. His mind was filled with a single damning thought: if they don't know their own limits, then they deserve to die. At the same time, Ding Shu suddenly appeared at the entrance to the hidden realm. He looked to be in a great hurry. Seeing Ding Shu arrive, Xuan Si and Quan Rui were slightly surprised. One of them spoke up, "You're Ding Shu, what are you doing here?" But as soon as he arrived, Ding Shu pressed them with a question. "A team just went in, right?" Quan Rui was stunned by his demeanor. "Yes, they did." What do you want?" Ding Shu remained silent, but his eyes filled with indignation and hatred revealed everything. As it turned out the other day, Ding Hao had reprimanded him over the intruder incident. "Yun Che Chao Ji, son, don't think you can just pin this on them because they beat you at the Memorial Museum. I don't have time to handle these little matters for you right now." At that, Ding Shu held out his hand. Hot-tempered, he wanted to argue back. It really was them who burst in. "I heard their voices." The only response Ding Shu received was a suspicious look from Ding Yi. He immediately denied it. "Ah, Shu, the intruder easily escaped from me and so many guards. How could any student possibly accomplish that?" Even Ding Guo didn't believe him. He even sized up Ding Shu with a contemptuous look. "Son, you at least have to prove that those two have the strength to get past the guards. Otherwise, it will be difficult for me to speak on your behalf." Seeing that the commotion was getting nowhere, Ding Dong even coldly brushed Ding Shu's issue aside. "All right, we're talking about official business. Don't bother us anymore." Recalling the humiliation of that day, Ding Shu, as if going mad, grabbed Quan Rui's shirt. "Yun Che and Chao Ji went in too, right? I want to enter this hidden realm too." In a land filled with blue ice blocks, a giant monster covered in sharp ice shards was slashed by streaks of light. Immediately after, Yun Che leaped in and dealt it a fatal blow. Its body instantly shattered into small pieces. Just as the level 20 monster was defeated, a level 30 monster charged forward. It continuously shot magic towards Yun Che. He had to keep dodging its attacks, but was quickly backed into a corner. At that moment, Yun Che shouted, "Chao Ji!" He quickly thought to use the surrounding shield. Instantly, a pair of golden wings appeared. They enveloped Yun Che, helping him move forward. Surrounding shield. Consumes 40 MP duration 3 minutes. Grants a liquid shield to one unit with 500 durability and 700 defense. With that shield, Yun Che confidently charged forward. Behind him, Chao Ji was using Encouraging Shout. Yun Che has received the Encouraged status. Attack power increased by 5%. Speed increased by 5% from Chao Ji's Encouraging Shout. Next, Yun Che swept his blade around the level 30 monster's body. His speed was so fast that only streaks of light were visible in the air. After that, Yun Che managed to jump on top of its head. From there, he powerfully brought down his blade. Under the sharp blade, the monster's body was instantly split in two. A notification bar also appeared, Blade Hiss. Magic attack increased by 70%. Remaining duration 7 seconds. After a tireless battle, finally that sound rang out. "You have leveled up." The stats board received a significant boost. This battle also helped Chao Ji. He cheered joyfully. "I leveled up too, and then another level." Chao Ji was now at level 11. Unlike him, a stoic-faced Yun Che was checking his inventory, busy calculating. He was thinking about the skill book he'd gotten from the Ding family earlier. Conveniently, it contained 2 books, Surrounding Shield and Encouraging Shout. At Qiaoju's current level, he could learn how to actually use the skills even though the monster levels here are a bit high. But with Qiaoju's help, everything would be much easier. With that sorted out, the two set off deeper into the hidden realm in no time at all. The two of them stopped before a path made entirely of crystals. Yunche recalled what that teacher said about this hidden realm. There is also a very rare monster called a Miracle Stone monster. In a dark corner of his mind, the image of the Miracle Stone monster gradually came into focus. Killing it has a chance to drop a support-type skill named a Gravity Pull. It's also a skill on the skill list grouped with the other unlearned skills. Gravity Pull. This skill has not yet been learned. Thinking of this, Yunche was secretly pleased. It's a good thing I read the skills on the list from the mirror world. That's how I decided which ones to learn. However, the Miracle Stone monster wasn't the only thing on his mind. Yunche seemed to be planning something else. It wasn't just the Miracle Stone monster, but also the undead. Turns out his quick mind had already accounted for the undead. Thinking this, Yunche began to look around. I wonder where in this hidden realm that group of powerful fighters died. Their souls should be floating around near where they died. Hopefully I can find a really high-level one. Just then, a strange sight caught Yunche's eye, causing him to stare wide-eyed in astonishment. Before him, a monster made of stones was moving. Could that thing be? It seems the two of them have reached the Valley of Crystal Pillars, the gathering place for those strange pillars. Seeing a monster on patrol, Van Triet and Q3 quickly hid behind a nearby rock outcrop. From the outcrop, Van Triet carefully scanned the area below. He suddenly grew suspicious. So many elite Wonderstone monsters were gathered here. Moreover, they've moved at least 1,000 meters, which is far beyond the normal operating range of monsters. Could they be the rogue species? The image of a monster species commonly called rogues appeared in Van Triet's mind. They are rare monsters from secret realms that do not stay in one fixed location. Instead, they wander everywhere. These ferocious rogues often seek and eliminate powerful individuals who enter the secret realm. Their strength is much greater than that of normal monsters. At some point, the blade in Van Triet's hand began to glow with a purple light. Gripping the hilt, he used his agility to quickly leap down. In the past, when humans were not yet strong, encountering the rogue species meant getting beaten black and blue. Continuing his train of thought, Van Triet recalled hearing about this species' history, because they even wander outside of the secret realms. At their most aggressive, the rogue species would even capture and kill innocent people living nearby. This led to countless tragic disasters near the secret realms. They are also quite lucrative prey for those with real strength, but that comes with corresponding danger. After defeating them, one receives experience and item drops that far surpass those from normal monsters. As he thought of this, Van Triet's figure appeared once more above the group of elite Wonderstone monsters. With the blade in his hand, he decisively struck, slashing through each monster. In his heart, Van Triet made a resolution regarding this incredibly powerful type of monster. I can only give it a shot. However, the elite Wonderstone monster was healing itself. Van Triet was quite surprised by this. So it has a continuous healing skill, huh? Right after that, two elite Wonderstone monsters gathered and fired magical energy toward Van Triet. Facing this move, the experienced Van Triet used the same type of shield as before to get through. Unfortunately, there were too many monsters this time. Even the shield couldn't block everything. A beam of magical energy shot straight into Van Triet's back. The attacks from this mob were both fast and numerous. After the shield was destroyed, more beams of magical energy struck Van Triet's body directly. In this situation, even with his speed, he couldn't dodge everything. Worse, his health bar was rapidly depleting. Van Triet worried that his health points and defense were too low. If it weren't for the shield Q3 had placed around him, he would have been seriously injured by now. After that, a series of blue lights appeared around Van Triet, summoning undead spirits. Even though they had been enhanced to level 23, they were pierced through in an instant. This isn't working. Even the undead spirits can't hold them off. Realizing the situation was dire, Van Triet had no choice but to turn and flee. Luckily, their movement speed was still quite slow. Although the monsters couldn't catch up for the time being, his situation was still very precarious, given his health points and defense. They couldn't be increased in a short amount of time. In a flash, Van Triet returned to Q3's side. If he wanted to defeat these monsters, it seemed he could only rely on the defense boost Q3 would get after leveling up. Thinking this, he urged him, "First come with me to grind some other normal monsters to level up." And so the two of them went to a low-level monster area. Van Triet stood behind and observed. Q-Tree fighting monsters to grind levels. From that vantage point, I saw plenty of monster locations. They're perfect for taking him to level up. Van Triet's clever mind had already figured it out in team battles. A protective shield is the indispensable first line of defense. After a powerful impact, the durability of Q-Tree's simple shield only dropped to 94%. Seeing this, Van Triet became even more convinced of the importance of shields. And other classes can hide behind the protective shield to better protect themselves. Q-Tree was a perfect fit for this role, which is why Van Triet helped him from the very beginning. From then on, all of Q-Tree's attribute points were focused on defense. Add to that the protective helmet I conveniently got from the Din family's guards. With such careful preparation, Q-Tree, though only at level 11, could easily fight one-on-one with a level 20 monster. He now had, at the very least, the core defensive capabilities of a shield bearer. He could now block attacks from monsters up to level 20. Noticing that Q-Tree was still a bit clumsy when fighting, Van Triet guided him loudly. "Lower your whole body, stand firm." Q-Tree immediately followed Van Triet's instructions, pointing his shield and attacking his target. The two sides collided with a shower of sparks, but this was a good sign. Q-Tree looked happily at the status bar of his simple shield. Durability 90%. It had dropped a little more than before. Just as he was celebrating, a monster suddenly attacked from behind. Van Triet quickly shouted, "Watch out! Attack from behind!" Q-Tree was knocked to the ground. In the nick of time, Van Triet managed to destroy the monster. After dealing with it, he turned his head and reminded Q-Tree in a cold voice, "Always be vigilant for the enemy's next attack, and your range of movement doesn't need to be so wide. Leave room to deal with the next attack." A second later, Van Triet helped Q-Tree up. Facing Q-Tree's focused gaze, he continued his lesson. "Although you must always maintain vigilance, your body must remain relaxed. You only need to tense up at the moment of defense." Seeing that Q-Tree had regained his composure, Van Triet pushed him forward. "Continue." This time, he wasn't just observing. Van Triet held the blade in his hand and got into a ready stance. "I've got your back. As a shield bearer, you must always pay attention to the movements of your teammates behind you." With Van Triet's dedicated guidance, Q-Tree grew more and more confident. He quickly followed that plan. Xiaozhi used his shield to block the debris flying towards them. Behind him, Van Triet was still instructing, "Remember this. When the power difference isn't too great, skill is the most important thing that affects victory or defeat." After who knows how long, the ground was littered with monster corpses. Van Triet finally stopped. "I've leveled up," he thought. Van Triet's gaze fell on Xiaozhi, who was reading the information panel. Now he could confidently face enemies head-on. Because of that, the experience points were split more generously. After checking for a moment, Xiaozhi couldn't hide his joy as he announced to Van Triet, "I've reached level 15. Hearing him say that, Van Triet immediately took out a skill book. "You can finally learn this now." Its information appeared. Skill book Shield Armor Plate. Equips an outer layer of shield armor plate onto your own shield, increasing durability by 400 and defense power by 512, equal to 1/7 of your own defense. Rarity rare. Mana cost 50 MP. Required job shield bearer. Level required to learn level 15. Xiaozhi quickly finished learning the skill. His equipment seemed stronger too. While Xiaozhi was busy admiring the armor around him, Van Triet summoned his undead spirits. He thought to himself about the skill book he'd conveniently taken from Din Ra. It was the last one Xiaozhi could learn. By adding this shield guard as an extra layer of armor to his summoned shield, his defense points would increase. After they finished preparing, Van Triet felt it was time. This should be enough to deal with those elite-level wanderers. Meanwhile, in the Star Pillar Valley, the atmosphere was frighteningly quiet. On a nearby cliff, 3 dark figures had appeared out of nowhere. It turned out to be 3 professors from the academy. They just so happened to be scouting the area. They were Lei Lai level 33, Trang Chin level 37, Lei An level 34. Trang Chin spoke in surprise. "There are so many elite-level wanderers here. Where did they all crawl out from?" Lei An made a decision. "This is too dangerous for the students. We need to deal with this immediately." Despite saying that, Lei An was still a bit hesitant. "But we can handle normal level 30 monsters. But dealing with these elite wanderers is another story." Just then, a signal flare in the sky caught their attention. It was a distress signal from the students. Seeing it, Trang Chin immediately stood up. He looked anxiously at the sky. "It was launched from over there. Let's go save the students over there first." Lei An hesitated. "But these wanderers over here are also very dangerous if any students unknowingly run into them." In this difficult situation? Lei Lai, who was beside them, made a suggestion. That's right. To be safe, I should probably stay here. At this, Trang Chin no longer had anything to worry about. He stressed, in that case, Lai, you stay here. If anything happens... Before he could finish, Van Treat's voice suddenly cut in. How about you let us watch over things here? The distress signal over there must mean they've also run into a wanderer. If only two of you teachers go to help, it'll be too much for you. Trang Chin wanted to say something else. You kids! But Van Triet quickly reassured him. The speed of these wanderers isn't fast, and besides, they haven't noticed us. He continued to persuade them. If we just watch from a distance, nothing will happen. You can all go without worry. Hearing that the three professors had no choice but to trust the two of them and turn to leave, Trang Chin hurriedly led Lei Li and Lei An away. Before leaving, he didn't forget to give a warning. But those monsters are extremely, extremely dangerous. You absolutely must not act on your own, okay? Trang Chin just didn't notice as he was saying, you have to hide well. If you get discovered, you'll have absolutely no chance of escaping. Just how dangerous Van Triet's expression had become. It's they who won't be able to escape. After they left, the blade in Van Triet's hand was already swinging everywhere. He repeated to himself, that's right, they're the ones who won't escape. Just as Van Triet was busy, dealing with the monster in front of him, another monster behind tried to launch a sneak magic attack. Luckily, he was already prepared. A shield made of undead spirits rushed forward. The shield surrounded the shield guard, and so under the protection of the undead spirits, Van Triet faced almost no obstacles. The magic blasts from the elite-level Duothak monsters were quite strong. Just a small bit was enough to shatter the undead spirits. At that moment, Van Triet had successfully closed the distance in just an instant. The blade in his hand slashed into its body. However, its health bar still had a little left. Van Triet charged forward again. Still a little bit left. Before the blade. That sharp blade, the monster was split in two, its body nearly disintegrated. From inside its body, a purple glowing object suddenly fell in front of Van Triet. After finishing off of this monster, Van Triet continued to rush forward, thinking to himself, I've successfully dealt with one wanderer. I've almost gotten used to this job class now. He dashed past the undead spirits toward where they were being knocked back. But compared to his past life, he was still far from his peak. The decisive slashes from Van Triet's blade spared no monster. He calculated in his head. Even though he could now coordinate with his reversal skill to significantly increase his attack power, and with the experience from the previous monsters killing them, was now too easy for Van Triet. However, he still seemed dissatisfied. But as a support class, my base damage is still too low. If only I could increase my attack power a little more, that would be great. Just as Van Triet was about to get up, the level up notification appeared. This is quite an unexpected reward, Van Triet thought. Leveled up again, as expected from high-level rare monsters. This elite monster gives a lot of experience. The notification bar reminded him again, please pick up the dropped items. Following the prompt, Van Triet walked over to the monster's corpse. He casually picked it up. Item retrieved. Unexpectedly, this item surprised Van Triet. He stared at the new weapon in his hand. It had high attack power, and its stats appeared at the same time. Crystal Longsword, attack power plus 552. A look of satisfaction crossed his face. Van Triet thought happily, isn't this perfect for making up for my low base attack power? A moment later, Van Triet had gotten used to this weapon. He gave the blade a light swing to test its power. This next fight will be a lot easier, he thought. Even though he got a good item, he still didn't find what he was looking for. Van Triet thought with disappointment, it's a shame the gravity pull skill book I wanted didn't drop. The drop rate seems to be low. As he was lost in thought, wondering if he could get a bit luckier and find a few more rogue types, a flare in the sky caught Van Triet's attention. It looked familiar. Van Triet immediately remembered the professor's team he had just met. Isn't that the same spot where the distress signal was fired earlier? Moreover, this one was a special grade distress signal, the kind only the teaching staff is equipped with. At the same time, elsewhere, a tense-looking Trang Chin was wondering what was happening. Turns out the situation over here wasn't good at all. The rescuing professors and the students had to retreat and take shelter in a cave. Why are so many rogue types gathered here? Not only that, but another group was surrounded in the open. Luckily, they still had a barrier up, or they would have been overrun by the monsters long ago. On a high cliff nearby, Bansa was gathered with a group of people. She wondered, why are so many monsters gathered here? What on earth happened? Han Gyat approached from behind. Even I haven't figured it out yet. It's still unclear. We just followed the signal here to provide backup. As he said this, Hanjat urgently pointed toward the cave. The signal came from the cave. They must be trapped inside. Down below, our soldiers with shields are advancing slowly, but they're facing a lot of difficulty. We're organizing a rescue effort. But there are just too many monsters. Even if all of us teachers charged in, it wouldn't be enough. Van Treat stood silently behind the reinforcement group. Around him, everyone was on the verge of exhaustion. It would be great if you students could help out as well. Hearing Han Gyat's words, Van Sa didn't refuse. She smiled and replied, "Of course it's the right thing to do." As soon as she finished speaking, the magic weapon in her hand began to glow brighter and brighter before she threw it high into the air. Instantly, a brilliant magic circle appeared at Van Sa's feet. Aura of Insight. As the secret art activated, everyone's body was enveloped in a golden magical layer. Their combat power was boosted. Spirit power +2. Attack power +20%. A man looked at his hands and exclaimed, "The buff from this skill is incredible." Someone else praised, "It has to be at least epic tier." Van Sa's job wasn't over. She leaped high, aiming her palm at a giant monster. Gravity Crush. Seeing Van Sa join the Fray Van Am didn't stand still either. She swung her blade horizontally. Shadow Sting. And with that, another monster was defeated. Seeing their perfect teamwork, the crowd couldn't hide their admiration. A female student spoke up. "They're so strong." The person next to her added, "This time we can definitely save the people trapped inside." Another person was still stunned. As expected of Vansa and Van Am, Van Treat watched silently from above, seemingly with no intention of intervening. It's not just their equipment. Even their skills are top tier. It seems that even if I weren't here, this place would be fine. For now, Van Treat was only worried about the people inside the cave. I wonder what the situation is like in there. What on earth could have lured so many rogue types to gather here? To solve the mystery, Van Treat dashed off simultaneously, instructing Q Tree, "I'm going inside to scout. You stay with these people for now." In the blink of an eye, Van Treat appeared in the mirror world. A timer began to count down. Time remaining in the mirror world, 29 minutes and 59 seconds. Here Van Treat could stroll around freely. He reasoned to himself, "Everything here is crystal. It's all mirror surfaces. This way I can enter the mirror world at any time. Although it's very useful, I still haven't figured out how to use it proficiently. It's just that I haven't had time to understand the mechanism for returning to reality. Yesterday at the Din residence, after the time for walking in the mirror world ended, I still couldn't return, lost in thought." Van Treat walked past the line of shield-bearers and approached the cave. In the distance, a few faint shadows appeared near the cave entrance. Seeing them, Van Treat realized, the people are phantoms, but the monsters aren't. At that moment, the corpse of a monster lay off to one side. He analyzed in his head, but the monster's corpses actually exist. Besides me, living things in the mirror world don't have a physical form. Van Treat didn't linger too long by the monster's corpse. He quickly walked over to the group of people in the cave. To his surprise, Van Treat even saw a few familiar faces. It's them. Is that Little Z? Little. Next, he continued to scout the surroundings. He found a passage that was deliberately hidden deep inside. It seems they were the ones who caused the rogue types to gather here. Then they sent out a distress signal. Relying on the narrow terrain, they won't be in any danger for a short while. I just don't know what on earth is inside that could have lured so many rogue types. As soon as he peeked inside, the pale blue light that filled the cave made Yun Che uncomfortable. It was all crystals, which greatly affected his ability to judge the path. By sight, that is. His eyes unexpectedly landed on something in a corner. Yun Che was surprised. He never expected something like this to be here. It turned out the blue light was radiating from the dense cluster of crystals, packed inside. Yun Che looked closely and blinked. This is special crystal ore. No wonder Xiaoxie's group came to this cave. This is probably the special type of crystal he was thinking of. This kind of crystal isn't like those in the outside world. The ones that grow in here have a rather important meaning and use. Secret realms will create some special products that the outside world doesn't have. Furthermore, people with life skill professions can use these products to create special items like equipment and accessories. With that thought, Yun Che moved closer to the crystal cluster. His hand gently touched a small branch of these mineral deposits. They're worth far more than 1,000 taels of gold. Just as he thought that, a notification screen appeared: mirror crystal ore. Collectible. Can be taken. Can. From this place back to the real world. Below that were two options, yes or no. Reading those lines, Yunche couldn't help but be astonished. He silently repeated, "From this place back to the real world." To be more certain, Yunche placed his hand on a larger crystal branch. Just as he'd hoped, the notification appeared, "From this place back to the real world." Yes/no. Yunchi discovered something interesting and let out a soft laugh. His finger swiped across the screen. "So as long as there's a place inside the mirror, I can return to the real world from there." Of course, Yunche's choice was always yes. One precious crystal cluster after another was collected into his bag. This skill still has so much more to discover, so I need to find a chance to study it meticulously. After collecting 10 of them, Yunche returned to the main task. His footsteps drew closer and closer. But for now, I still have to scout this place first. The deeper he went, the more the sight before him overwhelmed Yunche. The amount of ore in here was abnormally large. If all this ore were mined clean, it would be more than enough to turn a normal person into a billionaire. No wonder so many vagrants gather here. At the same time, in the real world, Yun Sha was still helping everyone defeat the gravity pressure monsters. In another corner of the battlefield, Yun Yin didn't rest for a single second either. Then in the sky, above them, a giant magic circle suddenly appeared. Stardust art. Someone stared in a daze. Could it be that all their skills are epic level? Spells. Why is the power of every single one so immense? The person behind replied, "They're much stronger than even our teachers." Who knows how much time had passed, but suddenly 2 red slash marks appeared on the monster's back. After that slash, it immediately collapsed in front of the main group. Seeing this, they all cheered joyfully. "We're finally saved," said Xiaoxie. He had just regained his composure. "I thought I was going to die here." Facing them, Yun Yin's expression remained tense. She warned, "Don't relax just yet. We still have to fight our way out. Everyone has used up a lot of energy." Beside Yun Yin, Yun Sha gently adjusted her hat and comforted her. "But it'll be easier than before." Just as she finished speaking, Yun Sha's gaze wavered at the sight of something. Even the joyful expressions of Liu Qing and Xiaoxie vanished. All that remained on their faces was absolute terror. Following their gaze, they saw that the cave entrance was unexpectedly filled with nothing but vagrants. This... Now the real danger had arrived. A mournful scream echoed through the space. Could it be that all the vagrants in the secret realm have run over here? In contrast to the chaotic scene outside the mirror world seemed strangely peaceful. Suddenly, a few dazzling streaks of light shot out from somewhere in the air as Yunche strolled around leisurely. He ignored the dirt and rocks gradually falling behind him. It really is like a maze. Just as he was starting to feel bored, Yunche's gaze was suddenly captivated. In front of him was a tree trunk covered in crystals. At its peak was a beautiful crystal. Yunchi seemed drawn in by the crystal before him, unconsciously moving closer. Could it be the hidden secret? An old legend suddenly surfaced in Yunche's mind. It said that if the various types of crystal ores are the special products of a secret realm, then this core is the realm's one and only hidden treasure. A hidden treasure is the condensed crystallization of these so-called special products within the secret realm, something that has been nurtured for an indeterminate amount of time. An ordinary person might go their whole life without ever seeing one. Remembering this, Yunche became even more certain about the origin of the object before him. A faint smile crossed his lips. Each hidden treasure of this type has its own unique special effects. Its information immediately appeared: Mirror Core. Level None. Type Hidden Treasure. A unique item. Upon use, stamina, plus 10 mana recovery speed, plus 0.5, reduces light and electric element damage by 20%. This secret realm's core is a replica of the hidden treasure known as the Warm Mirror Core in Yunche's hand. Yunchi was already calculating in his mind. An increase to basic attributes and a reduction in elemental damage, huh? The stamina increase could boost my life points immensely, and the increased mana recovery speed could help me stack more Blade Hiss spells. More importantly, it reduces light and electric element damage by a whole 20%. A percentage-based damage reduction is extremely rare. Even the best equipment rarely offers that much, and besides, that would take up an equipment slot you have to wear. After analyzing this far, another question suddenly popped into Van Triet's head, but the strange thing was, he was reminded of the rock liquor monster. Van Triet suddenly realized that the crystal ore attracted wanderers. If a treasure really existed, then this secret realm must have a monster whose level far exceeds the Wanderer's. Pushing that thought aside for now, Van Treat's first priority was still to bag his loot. After I'm done with this treasure, I'll get out of here. However, the notification this time was different from the last. Choose your action, use, or collect. Using or taking this item out will consume the remaining time for your mirror walk. Time remaining is 10 minutes. Do you wish to consume it? Yes/no. While Van Treat was busy collecting items in the mirror world, the outside world had already descended into chaos. Van Sa and Van Am didn't look so good either. Both were staring in the same direction. Before them, a giant and ferocious monster was closing in. It looked stronger than all the monsters they had fought so far. A terrified scream echoed from somewhere. That's the Wanderer Lord, it's a hidden boss. The massive hidden boss of the secret realm appeared, its body kicking up clouds of dust and rock. The Wanderer Lord is a rare independent hidden boss, separate from the secret realm's main lord. Its power. With just a slight movement, a large amount of rock and dirt rained down around the group's protective barrier. Far surpassed that of a normal lord, the entire ravine was packed with wanderers swarming and crowding at the feet of the Wanderer Lord, trapping the dungeon explorers inside their encirclement. And it was far beyond what the teachers or students could fight. They still had a little time. The protective shield was deflecting the attacks from outside, but everyone was terrified. Weren't Wanderer Lords only supposed to appear in high-level secret realms? They looked at each other then, at the giant Wanderer Lord in front of them, everyone's faces pale. Why would this kind of monster be in this secret realm? At this rate, we're all going to die here. Seeing everyone fall into a panic, Van Sa took a deep breath, slowly steadying her breathing. She stood up on the highest point among the crowd and yelled at the top of her lungs to get everyone's attention. Everyone calm down. The most important thing now is to work together to get out. She quickly drew up an escape plan for everyone trapped here. Van Sa pointed towards the canyon. From that canyon over there, we can escape this valley. Her eyes were fixed in that direction, her expression filled with determination and confidence. As long as we get out of this valley, we can escape easily. Van Sa raised everyone's spirits and became the vanguard, aiming straight for the canyon. Astral secret art. Therefore, I won't hold anything back now. Anything. Full power breakthrough towards it. Trang Chen continued her words. Mobilizing the magic in his hands, his eyes glowing, he stepped forward to set an example. That's right. We have to at least get the students out. His armor fully equipped, he raised his shield using his own body as the vanguard to forge a path. Starting with me, we'll attack in rotation. Everyone quickly deployed according to Trang Chen and Van Sa's instructions. They charged forward simultaneously to attack the Lord. Shielding magic was cast. The men in iron armor held their shields, forming a more solid barrier, while other mages reinforced it. The group moved bit by bit through the monster encirclement. The shield layer took hits from them, but they also received counterattacks from the group inside. After a while of struggling, the group managed to inch closer to the valley crevice. Hold on, we're not far now. But just as the group was a short distance from their goal, the Lord suddenly attacked them. Battle roar rally. At its call, the Wanderer horde began to gather. They stood in different positions, preparing for action. The Wanderer monsters quickly repositioned themselves. From the cliffs above and the valley floor below, they all moved towards the Lord. Their numbers grew larger and larger. They almost completely blocked the only exit in front of the group. Damn it, where did all these monsters come from? The Lord stood motionless, but one of its eyes flashed with a blinding purple light. Crystal aura. A magic circle appeared in the air. Countless red lights rained down on the smaller Wanderer monsters. They were instantly buffed with power. Health points plus 20% attack power, plus 20% defense power, plus 20%. The small monsters, having received a power boost from the Lord, immediately broke through the defensive shield and attacked the people inside. How did their attack power suddenly increase so much? Their numerous ranged attacks consequently pierced through to the mages in the back. The damage is too high. The healing can't keep up. In the blink of an eye, someone was riddled with holes by the attacks. That person's entire body went limp on the spot. Help me! A student seeing the scene before him screamed in panic as the fear of death crept into his mind. The teacher is dead. Van Sa tried to control the situation. She quickly reorganized the defensive line and the rear. Shield bearers moved to the front. Priests prioritized healing the shield bearers. But deep down, Van Sa knew the current situation very well. They couldn't hold out for much longer. Everyone had already expended too much energy. Right now they were just forcing themselves to hold on. What's more, the Wanderer Lord hadn't even truly attacked yet. Behind her, a hooded figure gripped a dagger tightly in his hand, his teeth clenched as he looked at the situation. This is bad. At this rate, we'll never be able to break through the encirclement. He quickly went into stealth and ran through the crowd, rushing straight to the front. He squeezed one eye shut while the other opened wide, staring intently at the path ahead. Looks like I'll have to escape on my own. He quickly ran out of the group's protective circle, weaving through the forest of monsters, trying to find an escape route for himself. Trang Chin saw someone deserting and quickly shouted to stop him. The rest of you follow the Wanderer. Don't follow him, teacher. The stealth won't last long enough for us to escape. Just as he finished his last word, the figure of the Wanderer flickered into view right behind the horde of monsters. A bright light also suddenly erupted behind Trang Chin, making him jump. He whipped his head around and, along with the others, looked up at the Overlord. The massive Overlord was gathering mana. This is... Watch out! He only had time to shout as a warning, but the attack launched faster than any of them could have imagined. In the blink of an eye, it struck the fleeing person's position. Trang Chin froze in horror, his trembling voice unable to hide his despair. The Overlord! It blew him up, turned him into dust! The already narrow canyon in front of them collapsed from its attack. The curly-haired man behind Trang Chin trembled as he pointed towards the canyon ahead. Not only that, it also caused the canyon to collapse. The more he looked, the more terrified he became, his face quickly turning ashen. This level of attack power is just insane. We're not going to make it out. After launching one attack, the Overlord began to gather power once more. Huai'an turned his head, his face covered in the sweat of panic and despair. Look at what it's doing. We're done for. This time, it's coming for us. Van Sa and Van Am broke through the barrier, charging straight towards the giant Overlord in front of them. We can't block it. The two of them quickly created a shield a short distance from the group. Giant's Shield, Rock Mountain Shield. These were the functions of the two defensive spells. This appeared on the system screen. Both were high-level defensive spells. Giant's Shield, Rock Mountain Shield, level 70. Type Shield, Quality Epic, Defense plus 3000. Core Resistance plus 81. The shield is made from a stone turtle's shell and will automatically adjust to the wearer's body shape after being equipped. The Overlord's attack slammed directly into the two shields. The massive, sturdy shields in front of them boomed with a shockwave that echoed through the vast space. The group, those who were still strong enough, quickly moved behind Van Sa and Van Am's shield. Shoulder to shoulder, they pressed their hands against the shield, struggling to hold it steady against that incredibly powerful attack. Anyone with high strength, get over here and help. If it falls, we're finished. Van Sa was beside herself with worry, her entire face drenched in sweat under the blinding purple light created by the Overlord. This shield is a level 70 item, so its durability is pretty much guaranteed. She looked at the people straining to support the shield and grew even more anxious. But also, because it's such a high level, no one has a high enough level to equip it. It's also hard to move, so it can only delay things for a moment. A few students stood watching the scene. They couldn't help but tremble at the terrifying sight before them. Why? Is there a monster like this in the school's secret realm? As Trang Chin struggled to hold the line, he glanced at the students in the back who were arguing and blaming each other. It's all your fault if it weren't for you. He glanced to the side. The thought still echoed in his mind. Was every effort I made to save them before all for nothing? At that moment, he suddenly remembered Van Triette and Kiu Tri, who had been left behind. At least, those two kids are probably not in any danger, right? But as soon as that thought flashed through his mind, his eyes accidentally scanned over the small, skinny figure of Kiu Tri, struggling to hold the shield with everyone else. He's a student from the back. He watched him giving it his all. As he watched him struggle with everyone else, he couldn't help but silently curse in his heart. Didn't I tell you two to wait in the valley? What are you doing here? In the instant, Trang Chin was distracted. A rogue monster punched through the shield from behind, striking straight at him. Watch out! Kiu Tri was the fastest to react in that critical situation. He shouted his spell's name, Aegis. A golden shield enveloped Trang Chin's body, but it quickly shattered under the destructive force of the rogue monster's attack. His system displayed the damage stats. Trang Chin's left shoulder was hit, and the armor there cracked, causing blood to flow non-stop. He gritted his teeth, enduring the pain and looking at it. Whatever. The perimeter defense was breached a while ago. The monster continued to raise its fist, gathering mana into its next attack. Now there was no one left who could block these Wanderer-class monsters. But in the very moment he was about to give up, Q-Tree charged in from the side with his shield. He slammed his small shield straight into the monster's arm, knocking its punch off course. A laser-like beam then shot out of its mouth, and Q-Tree used his shield again to deflect its trajectory. Trang Chin clutched his wound, watching him fight so tenaciously. This kid. So he had this kind of strength. However, all the remaining shields had already been destroyed by the smaller rogue monsters. But now all the protectors' shields are broken. Q-Tree was also quickly sent flying back by the monster's attack, his body armor shattering. Our defense is completely... He collapsed continuously, coughing up fresh blood, looking to be in immense pain. Facing the blinding light of the next attack, Trang Chin stood frozen, his eyes filled with the despair of someone awaiting their end. There's no turning back now. But suddenly Van Triet appeared with a sword in his hand. He quickly sliced the monster into many small pieces. Trang Chin stared at the unexpected scene, dumbfounded. His despair turned to astonishment. He stepped on the head of a rogue monster, his eyes glowing with an unusual light as he held his sword and looked towards Q-Tree. Q-Tree, you did a great job. Q-Tree managed to pry one eye open. Seeing who had arrived, he reached out his hand, mumbling his name. Van Triet saw that his good friend was okay. Van Triet flashed a confident smile, his voice firm. Leave the rest to me. Time rewinds to an earlier point when Van Triet discovered the core of the secret realm not long before this. In the real world, besides the replicated essence core from the mirror world, there's also the original. He held the two essence cores in his hands. After a quick assessment, he smiled. It seems that thanks to this mirror world, my future earnings could double. Van Triet looked at the display screen. He reviewed his equipment storage, but the crystals and ores weren't easy to take out. He reread the information the system provided about the world. Mirror. You are about to exit the mirror world. To extract 75 crystal ores requires 750 minutes of travel time in the mirror world. Remaining time is insufficient. Please select the items you wish to bring out. Remaining time will be consumed 10 minutes. He then looked at the sparkling essence core in his hand. It's identical to this one. Bringing out 1 unit of crystal requires consuming 10 minutes of travel time in the mirror world. Please select your action take/use. After a moment of hesitation and consideration, Van Triet made his decision and touched the text on the screen. For now, I'll have to just bring out the most valuable replicated essence core. As soon as he confirmed his choice, the information on the system screen changed instantly. The essence core before him was carefully stored inside Van Triet's mirror world inventory. At the same time, a tremor caused rocks to rumble and fall from above. Surprised, Van Triet stared into the empty space. His mind raced. This kind of tremor, he didn't hesitate for a single second. He turned and ran quickly toward the exit. Is something happening? He touched a nearby mirror, glancing at it from the corner of his eye, thinking, I have to see if I can still enter the mirror world. Van Triet's movements were swift and decisive. The surrounding space instantly transformed into the mirror world. Mirror travel time remaining, 12 minutes and 54 seconds. As the countdown timer ticked, Van Triet realized something. It turns out that before the remaining mirror travel time is completely used up, I can still enter and exit freely. As he dashed forward like a streak of light, he gathered a new piece of useful information. Only after all the time is consumed does it enter a cooldown period. Inside his mirror world, he accelerated freely, weaving through every corner of the jagged rock fields. The time quickly ran out. Van Triet was back in the real world. You have left the mirror world. In front of him were countless rogue monsters packed layer upon layer, surrounding him completely. The number of monsters has increased again. Even if they were attracted by the crystal ore, there shouldn't be this many. Just as he was wondering about the number of these rogues, he turned his head and found the answer. A rogue lord. It seemed to be the source of the initial sense of danger. He didn't have much time to waste thinking about them any longer. Van Triet took off again, running like the wind to find Q-Tree's group. Q-Tree and the others are in danger. He ran in a straight line. Just then, a rogue monster blocked his path to his friends. If I can freely enter and exit the mirror world. The thought flashed through his mind, and Van Triet quickly shifted into the mirror world, his mirror world. He immediately reappeared behind the monster. Appearing and disappearing, he continued to move at high speed. This way I can easily dodge the monster's attacks. You have left the mirror world. Van Triet's eyes lit up. As he rushed to help, he calculated in his head. I'm level 24 now. He used the rogue monsters. as stepping stones, jumping on each one to weave through the gaps between them. Total magic points are 140. Magic recovery rate is 2.6 per second. Essence core adds 0.5 times 2. Therefore, my attack power can increase up to 330%. Van Triet narrowed his eyes cautiously, reassessing his total damage output. Magic Blade's attack power increases by 180%. Time remaining 8 seconds. Although it was urgent, the Rogue Lord was even stronger than the Secret Realm Lord. He once again shifted into the mirror world. Q-Tri's group appeared right in front of him. I need to be at least level 30. The mirror world is still lacking quite a bit. Through the mirror, Van Triet found his and Trang Chin's exact location. Once he confirmed their positions, he hurriedly left the mirror world, and that's when the slash that cut the rogue by monster like a piece of cake appeared just in time to save Q-Tri's life. You have left the mirror world. He held his sword imposingly and offered some encouragement. Q-Tri, you did well. Q-Tri, sitting on the ground with his armor splattered with fresh blood, reached out to him. Van Triet, leave the rest to me. Van Triet stomped hard on the ground, shattering the earth beneath his feet into small pieces. Mirror world. He moved between the mirror world and the real world at a dizzying speed. In an instant, Van Triet circled around to the front of the monsters, slashing decisively into their bodies. You have left the mirror world. If you have any support skills, buff me. He entered a combat stance, charging alone into the dense crowd of rogue monsters with a completely calm expression. Let me handle these rogues. Vansa, receiving his message, acted immediately. She chanted a spell, forming a bright star that shot straight toward Van Triet. Sentient magic. Q-Tri also stood up, mustering some strength to buff his good friend. Armor shield. A shield enveloped Van Triet. Receiving help from his teammates, he quickly charged in to fight the monsters. Spirit power +2. Attack power increased by 20%. Although he took the initiative to attack first, his eyes never stopped observing the surrounding situation. Although the number of monsters was absurd after using the essence core, his life points had multiplied and the photoelectric system had also reduced damage by 40%. He soared over the heads of the rogues, attacking them with chaotic thorns, but it seemed ineffective. There was no danger now. Immune. 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 It's just that these monsters are immune to chaos, otherwise they could have been wiped out much faster. A group of people stood below their mouths agape and eyes wide. Everyone was fixated on his every graceful strike. Trin Vu, standing next to Trang Chin, looked up with his eyes squinted shut and muttered, "Am I seeing things? I see his status bar shows something like garrisoned, but why is his attack power so high? What's more, what kind of skills did he even use to be able to phase through things?" Trang Chin clutched his heavily injured arm, a glimmer of relief slowly appearing in his eyes. "He's that strong. And to think I was worried about you before." On this side, Van Triet was still charging ahead alone, hacking and slashing through the towering rogue monsters. He paused for a moment, looking across his battlefield. Leveled up by 1. With so many monsters gathered here, I'll be leveling up in no time. Vansa, like everyone else, stood there silently watching him appear and disappear among the swarm of monsters. Her eyes showed her astonishment. Her mind was a complete mess of thoughts. I originally thought this guy was just a gutsy thief. I never expected his strength to be so far beyond my imagination. Van Am also fell silent, watching his every move. She just watched intently without saying a single word. All by himself, he went back and forth between the real world and the mirror world, tirelessly cutting through the rogue horde. Mirror world. You have left the mirror world. 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 Level up announcements flashed continuously before Van Triet's eyes. His health bar hadn't gone down at all. Level increased by 1. Level increased by 1. Level increased by 1. The group of students below was in utter shock. Someone standing behind Trang Chin, his jaw about to hit the floor, pointed at him. "Is this guy reinforcements from the outside? He's so strong." Trang Chin stood still, letting the person beside him treat his wound. He looked up and said, "I've met him before." His next words sent the students around him, reeling in shock. "I think he's a student." "What? What a student? No freaking way." Just as everyone was still stunned by Van Triet's ability, the rogue leader began to gather its magic. Trang Chin's group turned to look at it, every one of them trembling with fear. "This is bad. It's about to attack again. The beam of its power shot toward Van Triet's position, but he used the mirror world to evade it with ease. Van Triet teleported to another position. He looked up toward the leader and thought to himself, even now I still can't take an attack like that. It's not just continuously blasting the ground with that laser-like move. Its enormous feet and massive body have started to move. It's started moving, hasn't it? He glanced down at the shields protecting the group below. Once it gets closer, those two shields won't be enough to protect them. Trang Chin understood the situation. He quickly rallied everyone. Everyone try to push through. The number of monsters has gone down a lot. We'll break through the encirclement on one side. He looked at the scene before him, trying to urge everyone to action with every word. If we wait for the rogue leader to get closer, it'll be too late, no matter how strong that one guy is. There's no way he can fight this rogue leader. Someone pointed to the two shields in front, their face filled with worry. But these two shields are really hard to move. If we break out, we'll have to take the leader's attack head-on. That rogue leader! Everyone fell into a deadlock again, too afraid to find a better way. That's right. The moment we move, it can easily make us its target. These two shields are both huge and heavy. The only way we can bring them with us is by storing them in our inventory. Just as everyone was still hesitating about how to move the two shields, Van Triet's voice cut through their argument. Leave it to me. In a flash, Van Triet appeared near them. He took a step forward, stomping hard on the rock beneath his foot. I'll attack it and draw its hatred. And then all of you will use that opportunity to escape. Trang Chin couldn't believe his concise plan. He looked at Van Triet worriedly. We escape. And what about you? Van Triet gauged the monster's strength before him, remaining silent, not rushing to answer. If this rogue leader isn't dealt with, it will gather all the monsters in this hidden realm and release them to wander the outside world. The chaotic scenes of his past life flooded back into Van Triet's mind. Most of the great disasters in the past were caused by the rogue leader. With that, he rested his sword on his shoulder, turning to look at him with a resolute gaze and a firm voice. I'll stay behind, then I'll kill it. Blade of Rapture. Attack power increased by 350%. Time remaining 75. Mirror Walk. Time remaining 5 minutes and 41 seconds. Mirror Walk. Time remaining 5 minutes and 41 seconds. Trang Chin led the group, and they ran as fast as they could through the opening Van Triet had created for them. Hurry, hurry, break out! No matter how strong that guy is, when faced with so many monsters and the rogue leader, he's bound to get exhausted eventually, he shouted as he ran. He urged everyone to do their best to survive. We have to escape quickly so that he has a chance to get away. Someone running right behind Trang Chin glanced back in Van Triet's direction, his face covered in sweat, and asked the question on his mind. Didn't he say he was going to kill the leader? He only said that so we would leave without worrying. I mean, that thing is a rogue leader. Following the crowd that was desperately trying to escape Kyo Tree, also shut his eyes tightly to speed up. He turned his head to look back at Van Triet, his eyes filled with a bit of guilt and self-blame. I'm still so useless. In times like these, all I can do is run away. Van Triet, you have to be okay. Meanwhile, Van Triet alone was still frantically slashing through one vagrant monster after another. He appeared and disappeared tirelessly, taking down opponents. Level up. The vagrant lord wasn't just standing there to die either. It continuously attacked, firing blinding beams of light that swept across the spot where he had just appeared from the mirror walk. But using the mirror world, he dodged its attack and took the opportunity to get close to the lord's leg. You have left the mirror world. Van Triet decisively swung his sword down. The lord's leg crumbled like rubble, but the wound he had painstakingly created was quickly healed. This is bad. Its defense is way too high. I only inflicted a tiny bit of damage, but its regeneration skill can heal it in an instant. Standing before the colossal lord, he watched it intently and came to a conclusion. As I thought. I still have to go for that spot. He looked at the sparkling crystal on its head and thought, the crystal core on top of its head is its nucleus, and that's also its weak point. The moment he was figuring out how to deal with the lord, it immediately counterattacked with a massive strike. Van Triet leaped to the side to dodge it. My attack power just isn't high enough. He swung his arm, slashing a line to block its path right at that moment. A series of notifications about the duration of his teammates' buffs appeared. As Van Triet processed this information, he had to quickly adjust his plan. The buffs those guys gave me are starting to wear off, and my mana points are too low to maintain the arcane blade for much longer. He dashed past the vagrant lord, landing a few more slashes to buy some time. I need to level up first. Just then, A mysterious purple light suddenly illuminated a corner of the cave. The light quickly caught Van Triet's attention. He glanced over at the spot. What is this? He paused for just a moment, and the Lord's giant foot was already preparing to stomp down on his head. Van Triet took a step back, and in a flash he vanished from the real world, the mirror world. So you planned ahead, figuring out where I'd appear, huh? A moment later, when he reappeared in the real world, the light created by the Lord had only grown wider. You have left the mirror world. Your health has been reduced by 50 points. For the first time since the battle began, Van Triet's body took damage. Your health has been reduced by 50 points. Your health has been reduced by 50 points. Your health has been reduced by 50 points. This is a continuous large area of effect attack. He skidded across the ground, pushed backward, then regained his footing and charged forward again. There's not much time left for Mirror Walk. If I rely on it to dodge, I'll run out of mana instantly. Mirror Walk remaining time 3 minutes 46 seconds. After a moment of consideration, a thick black smoke appeared at Van Triet's feet. I'll just have to use the undead to block it. He summoned a horde of undead spirits to hold the line for a while. He himself stood in their shadows, continuing to think. But restoring summons consumes mana points. If I keep taking its attacks after this, I won't have enough. Suddenly, a shield slammed down onto the ground, blocking the Lord's attack just before it could threaten the spot he was retreating to. Are you trying to regroup? First? Van Triet was also startled by this sudden appearance. He stared ahead, his eyes wide in astonishment. Van Saw? Van Am and Q-Tree were there too, holding up shields to protect him. Everyone, why are you... Vansa turned to look at him, a faint, playful smile in her eyes as she joked. Your little follower here was begging so desperately, so we had no choice but to come and back you up. Q-Tree was too embarrassed to turn around and look at him, his voice a mumble as he tried to save face. I didn't beg desperately. There aren't as many monsters as before. The others over there have all escaped. I was just... Van Triet looked at his slightly hunched back and smiled gently. Then he spoke softly to Q-Tree. Thanks. A 4-pointed star appeared in Vansa's hand. She didn't look at Van Triet, but straight at the target in front of them. This hidden boss is still too dangerous. We'll cover you so you can slowly get out of here. He turned around, raising the sword in his hand high, his voice confident as he faced 2 vagrant monsters. No need. With a few swift slashes, the smaller monsters were all cut down by his blade. With everyone's support, I don't have to hold back anymore. Level up. Mirror Walk. Remaining time. 0 minutes. After dealing with the small fry, he had just managed to reach level 30. Van Triet's face was cold as he stared at the Lord. I'm level 30 now. My attack power is finally high enough. He adjusted his system, selecting something. A suit of armor immediately materialized on him. Corrupted Knight's Armor. Level requirement 30. Type Body Armor. Quality Rare. Dropped from the Dingra Secret Realm Lord. Van Saw looked up at the towering tree-like figure of the Lord before them. Her voice tinged with disbelief as she asked, Don't tell me you're planning to attack its weak point from above. At this height, it's basically impossible to get up there. Van Triet didn't answer her question. He just took out a magic book, smiling at it. What I wanted before, I have it now. The system quickly displayed information about another feature along with its reverse function. Van Triet held his sword vertically, his entire body entering a state of readiness to attack. This is the skill that pulls me towards the target. Arcane Blade. Attack power increased by 10%. Arcane Blade attack power increased by 10%. Arcane Blade attack power increased by 10%. Don't worry, I've got this all under control. He raised his right hand, brimming with his abundant magical power, and aimed precisely at the Lord's head. Immediately after, he clenched his fist and pulled back with all his might. Swoosh! Van Triet, who had been on the ground, used the reverse pull to fly straight to the top of the vagrant Lord's head. He had quickly reached his target. The core on its head emitted a mystical purple light, illuminating Van Triet's entire body. The group of Van Saw and Van Am stood below, their mouths agape in disbelief. Just a second later, a few slashes flashed. The once quite conspicuous core was forcefully struck by Van Triet. The Wanderer Lord's entire massive body trembled violently. An electric current seemed to run through its entire body. Power from the attacked core continuously erupted, and the light was blinding, spreading across a large area of its body. Triet was injured by the pressure from the core, and the armor on his body continuously emitted gray smoke. Your health has been reduced by 107 points. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the cuts that made his body bleed. He swung his arm and slashed hard once more. Your health has been reduced by 107 points. The system notifications chimed relentlessly, followed by the image of the Lord's core. Shattering from Van Triet's slash. Health points continuously updated. Your health has been reduced by 107 points. Spellcaster Van Triet, 30 HP, 302 out of 1,800 MP, 7 out of 160. You have defeated the Wanderer Lord. You have received 5,000 experience points. You have received the title Wandering Assassin. A legendary grade skill book has dropped. The Golden Light Membrane has dropped the Angelic Protection skill book. Amidst the purple fragments, Van Triet appeared with his sword in hand. Level up by 1. Q3 lowered his shield to his side. An admiring gaze along with 4 astonished eyes looked up at his achievement. Van Triet is really strong. Could he really defeat such a terrifying monster all by himself? Van Triet stood on the head of the Lord looking at the 2 sparkling specks of light with satisfaction. To think it dropped legendary grade items and 2 of them at that. Moreover, the things that dropped are... But before he could finish his sentence, the Lord's body beneath his feet suddenly began to sway unstoppably. It had lost its life and its massive body tilted, losing balance as if it were about to fall. The monster's about to fall, and Van Triet is still on top of it. Be careful. Seeing that the situation didn't look good, he quickly ran to find a way to escape. Just then, the corpse of the Wanderer Lord crashed down, crushing the mountain next to it. Van Triet, on his way out, was drawn by the noise. He turned his head to look at the mountain. Hey, what is that? A fragment had fallen away. It was quite dark inside, but he could still see an empty space behind it. He stared intently at the vast space inside the mountain, looking at the rugged, uneven rock formations, and whispered, "A hollow mountain." Van Triet stopped at the newly created cave entrance. He stood high above, observing everything just outside. Wanderers and human skeletons. He stood alone in the dim darkness amidst the uneven rocks and layers of dust. It seems that in this place something was born long ago. An even stronger Wanderer Lord. His gaze swept across the vast space, his eyes gradually growing dimmer. So that's why there are so many traces of a fierce battlefield here. Far away, the faint silhouettes of weapons plunged deep into the rock, and the figure of someone clutching a sword in their hand appeared. What is that? Van Triet observed more closely. The figure holding the sword plunged into the ground became clearer and clearer. That person was wearing neat armor, their entire body motionless, lifeless. Q-An. Q-Bon. Bon has died. Van Triet stood at the foot of a mountain of wanderer corpses looking up at that lonely, solitary figure. Q-Bon. Q-An had died, but his 2 hands still tightly gripped the hilt of his sword. His entire body remained upright, refusing to fall. Van Sa moved closer inside the hollow mountain, her eyes wide with shock as she looked at the corpse. Is this person the traitor, Q-An? She looked at the faint blue light reflecting off the sword in his hand and Q-An's defiant stance atop the rocky peak and couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Although I heard that this place is where the hero Din Khon fought and killed, but I never expected this kind of situation. Van Sa glanced at the corpses of the Wanderer monsters mixed with the white skeletons of humans nearby. This is clearly the scene after a battle with countless monsters and people. The scene here reminds her of the statues carved in the likeness of the man up there. It's completely different from the statue in the Modern History Museum. This person doesn't look like someone who could be easily trampled at all. Van Triet just stood there silently. He used Kai's sad eyes to look at the scene before him. Kyo Tree, who had been quiet behind him until now, suddenly spoke up, breaking the silence. You all probably won't believe this, but I think that my ancestor was probably not some heinous criminal at all. He said seriously, sharing his own thoughts from his days of researching books. History. Since I was a child, I've read about the history of my great-great-grandfather. Whenever it got to his specific experiences, the descriptions were always vague, but I still managed to find a few details. He looked up, his eyes incredibly firm and certain as he stated his conclusion. That is, he always went to hidden realms that were unsuitable for his own level. Kyo Tree turned his head to look at the others present, and asked a question about the body standing defiantly up there. Tell me, why would he, an S-class, a professional over level 60, come to a low-level hidden realm like this? Then he spread his arms, tilted his head back, and looked at the ceiling of the chamber full of jagged stalactites. Because this is a hidden realm that can nurture a Wanderer Lord, a true monster with unparalleled power that requires many, many people to take it down. It is also the source that brings the Wanderer species and other monsters to invade the outside world. And the Wanderer Lord is the source of the great catastrophe capable of summoning all monsters from the entire hidden realm into the outside world. Because of that, the government simply doesn't have enough troops to defend against all the monsters. Wanderers coming out of the hidden realm. He continued talking about the small figures in armor and with weapons who live by treading on the corpses of monsters. And that's why we have to rely on a few responsible and powerful professionals to periodically clear out the monsters in the hidden realms. Q-Tree stood passionately at the foot of the mountain of monster corpses and fallen professionals, and he said, "My great-grandfather was exactly like that. He came here to extinguish the catastrophe." The three of them, Van Treat, Van Saw, and Van Am, just looked at him in silence. A look of surprise flashed in their eyes. Seeing their gazes, he lowered his eyes again, his tone full of pain. "You all probably think I'm just making this up, don't you?" The hand inside his gauntlet clenched, trembling with every word. "My own family also says that I'm just searching for some kind of psychological comfort. To think you understood all that just from those words." At Q-Tree's most disheartened moment, Van Treat approached him gently, placing a hand on his slightly slumped back. He didn't use any fancy words, nor did he say too much. He simply looked into Q-Tree's eyes and said softly, "I believe in you." Van Saw and Van Am were also surprised by his tone, and both turned to look at Van Treat at the same time. Hearing this, Q-Tree looked up at him, surprise shimmering in his glistening eyes. At this moment, the Van Treat before him wasn't just offering words of comfort. That light and gentle smile confirmed that his words were true. He definitely wasn't that kind of person. An image of an enthusiastic brown-haired boy appeared stomping on a table and boasting cheerfully. "I don't need any master." The boy winked mischievously. He pointed at the other person and grinned slyly. "I'm a genius. It won't be long before I'm stronger than you. An old geezer like you should just retire early." And then the scene of him being swarmed by a mob of monsters, his mouth screaming loudly, "Master, save me!" But after being brought out of the secret realm, as someone else diligently bandaged his wounds, he started acting tough again. "Who needed you to save them? Don't save me next time. I just didn't expect that there would be so many monsters in this secret realm." Time in the memory continued to pass. That mischievous boy grew up covered in scars. Caught again, huh? But the smile of youthful passion still showed on his blood-stained face. "I'm the type of guy who works hard in secret just so I can show off in front of others. Don't worry. The secret realm we're heading to isn't life-threatening." The Kyo-an of that day, with a sword on his back and a shield in hand, glanced back at the person asking him, "Why would you choose the sword guard class? It's considered the weakest advancement for a shield-bearer." Hearing that question, he looked back with visible annoyance at the reckless guy beside him. "Isn't it because you focus almost entirely on strength and speed? You always charge straight ahead. Basically, no shield-type class can keep up with you." Until the scene around him was nothing but the corpses of monsters and the pointing and whispering of others. "My old friend, I finally found you." The man was covered in injuries, his gaze fading into darkness, but a smile was still on his lips. "I get it. Leaving the party without permission means a 3-month pay cut. I ran into too many rogues. You know much that I had to level up to save people. Oh, whatever. Forget it." Van Treat stood there watching the face of his old friend from his past life, the warmth in his eyes fading. "Q Bonbon, for you I will make the Din family pay." The scene shifts back to the Din household in a luxurious and splendid room. Din Qua frowned and asked loudly, "Is what you said true?" Din Huck was standing before a table where many people were gathered. He replied loudly, "It's true. If you don't believe me, Father, just ask the teacher in charge of this secret realm. That Van Treat guy is just that amazing." He recalled how he was initially blocked by the teacher at the entrance to the secret realm, unable to enter. "I was stopped by the teacher guarding the secret realm and wasn't allowed to go in. I really can't let you in. Your level is still too low." But when the people inside came out, they were all chattering excitedly. "Did you guys see that just now? I saw it from a distance. That rogue lord collapsed. They paid him no mind and didn't hold back, sharing everything they saw with each other. With a commotion that big, who wouldn't have seen it? That person must have killed it. So amazing. That was a rare hidden boss over level 40. Being able to take it down is beyond my imagination." Din Hook stood there watching those people leave, the secret realm endlessly discussing a certain name. His expression darkened. "That person's name is Van Treat, right?" Hearing this, the elders of the Din family all fell silent. Their gazes shifted from Din Hook to one another. I thought Van Sa and his group were already impressive enough. I never expected there to be a student that powerful. What on earth is his background? One of them slowly pushed himself up from the discussion table. The words that came out of his mouth were not pleasant. Summon the Din family guards. Follow me to capture the secret realm traitor. Just then Din Kwa, who had been deep in thought, spoke up to stop the man. Wait a moment. You said that little brat from the Q family was with him. The man looked up, a malicious glint in his eyes, his face half hidden in shadow as he gave the order. In that case, drag the Q family's people along with us. The scene returns to where Van Triet's group is standing. He was seriously examining the item dropped by the rogue lord. Skill book, golden light shield, level requirement none. Type specialized skill book, quality legendary. Van Triet took the book he just received, held it out to Kyo Tree and told him, here you learn this skill book. It has no level requirement. Beside them, Van Sa pointed at the book Kyo Tree had just received, looked at him in disbelief and asked, this is a legendary tier skill. And you're just giving it to him like that. Faced with the question, he just smiled and replied gently, it's a specialized skill for shield bearers. I can't learn it anyway. This is the very skill your great-grandfather used to use. Van Sa held the brim of her hat tightly, looking at Van Triet with a profound gaze. But you're certainly not lacking in powerful skills yourself. She walked up to him. The two of them paid no mind to Kyo Tree off to the side and started chatting. Technically, my skills are all high level, but they're nothing compared to yours. Whether it's the skill to suddenly vanish where you stand, he listened to her comments on his skills with shining eyes, or the one that lets you summon so many of those undead spirits. Hearing those two words, Van Triet suddenly lowered his head slightly, his bangs falling to hide his eyes. Undead spirits. Only then did he suddenly remember the skeletal undead wreathed in that ghastly green magic. I remember now. The undead I summon are created from souls. Besides me, other souls can also enter the mirror world. Thinking of something, he raised a finger and made a pressing motion. Just like that, Van Triet quickly teleported into the mirror world. At the same time, the system he possessed also displayed a new notification, now usable in the mirror world. Van Triet looked up. His eyes filled with earnest longing as he gazed at the person above. Under the power of the new skill, the lifeless person atop the mountain of corpses began to glow brilliantly. He stood up, a pure soul in a flowing cloak, looking towards Van Triet. Bon bon. Back in the real world, Van Sa sat with her legs crossed, waiting for Van Triet to return while Van Am grew impatient and urged her on. Van Sa, we should get going. Any later, and you'll miss your reception ceremony. Hearing her mention the ceremony awaiting her, Van Sa was startled into remembering. They really couldn't delay any longer. The three of them stood there waiting for him, but time was not on their side and Van Sa was getting a little cranky. It's obviously more interesting here. What on earth is Van Triet doing? Why did he suddenly disappear for so long without a peep? Meanwhile, he was still concentrating his energy on something in the mirror world. Van Triet stood before his deceased old friend, whom he had called forth. He made his soul hover right above Kyo An's corpse. Kyo Bon Bon. I never thought we'd be able to meet again. I have so much I want to tell you. But in the next second, black tendrils of energy began to crawl over his soul. It was a shame. They quickly tainted Kyo An's neck and face. His soul also tried, and to resist, but it seemed useless. The soul let out a furious roar as its entire body was outfitted in pitch-black armor. You still won't answer my attack's power. The destructive power of Kyo An's soul was too strong, forcing Van Triet to retreat and keep his distance. So he's turned into a wraith after all. But I don't want to fight him. The black shadow began to stretch out, gathering at a single point before striking towards the hovering Van Triet. Kyo An had completely transformed into a wraith, letting those dark shadows swallow him whole. From above, Van Triet looked down as images from Kyo An's past flashed before him. The stubborn face of the boy with a book in his hand also appeared before his eyes. And the final battle he had to endure, fighting countless people all by himself. Everything Kyo Bon Bon went through. The moment that bastard ambushed him, his hand piercing through his body. Ding Kon! Van Triet suddenly noticed something wasn't quite right in Kyo An's memory. That stance of his. Why does it feel so familiar? But an instant later, the mirror in front of him began to crack. With a series of sharp snaps, the mirror shattered, revealing Kyo An, now a wraith, standing opposite Van. Try it? What in the world happened? He lowered his gaze to hide his emotions and softly tried to call out to his old friend, Kyo Bonbon. But the only response he got was a leap and the cold swing of his blade. Van Triet parried the direct blow, trying to look into his eyes and call his name once more. Kyo Bonbon, but his old friend couldn't respond. He only pressed forward, continuing to attack him frantically. Van Triet calmly tilted his head to dodge. A sword slash whistled past him by a hair's breadth. It's only his fighting instincts left. He retreated into a defensive stance and quickly brought up the system to teleport. I'll have to retreat for now. Unable to leave this area, seeing the system's notification, he could only let out a sigh and look at the wraith before him. Looks like I have no choice but to fight. Outside, Kyo Tree had retracted his combat armor, but a sudden appearance left him quite stunned. It turned out Din Kwa and Din Huk had brought a whole crowd of people from various professions into the secret realm. Oh, why are you the only one here? Where's that Van Triet guy? Did he find out we were coming and run away, huh? The man looked at him, then glanced at his own nephew and laughed loudly. Well, then that just takes half the fun out of it, Din Huk. Kyo Tree somewhat cowardly lowered his head, not daring to look directly at the group before him. His voice as quiet as a mosquito's buzz, he asked, Why? Why are you all here? Are you here to level up too? Din Kwa adjusted the tie around his neck, his cunning eyes staring at him. Don't play dumb, you little devil from the Q family. Weren't you and Van Triet the ones who snuck into my house and stole from me? Falsely accused, he tried to clear his name, his voice becoming more resolute. I didn't. You're mistaken, sir. You think I couldn't hear you screaming. Q-Tri fell silent, his terrified eyes looking at the unreasonably aggressive crowd in front of him. Din Kwa didn't let him say another word. The man waved his hand with a sinister smile and said, All of this doesn't really matter, because I've brought you a little gift. Q-Tree's face went pale. His eyes filled with anxiety and fear as he looked at the gift the man had brought. The men following Din Kwa parted, allowing Kyo Tree to clearly see his entire family behind them. Grandfather, both grandmothers, second uncle, youngest aunt. His eyes scanned over them all before landing on a sorrowful face. That of a long-suffering woman, his mother. His grandfather, upon seeing Kyo Tree, immediately started shouting, Kneel! The curses echoed throughout the space. Kyo Tree bowed his head, listening to his grandfather's scolding. You animal, apologize to the hero clan right now. And apologize to young Master Din Huk, too. Grandfather, I don't want to. I don't want to hear another word of your excuses. The old man stubbornly held his ground and shouted at the boy. What did I teach you when you were a child? When facing the Din family? What are you supposed to do? Neil Chao Ji couldn't take it anymore. He tensed up and started arguing with his grandfather. Is our Chao family destined to be the Din family's dogs for all eternity? Just that one question from him left all the Chao family members standing there stunned. The man with the buzz cut collapsed to his knees, his eyes wide with terror as he screamed, Yes, we are the descendants of wicked traitors. Being their dogs is already a blessing. His young aunt trembled uncontrollably, sneaking a glance at Din Kwa's profile as she tried to persuade Chao Ji, Do you want to get our whole family killed? Think about your parents. She was playing on his emotions. Every word she said made Chao Ji's mother's body tremble. How hard has your mother had to work to support this family while your father is just so crazy? He was speechless, just standing there watching his own family back him into a corner. Chao Ji tried to make them see. He leaned over, gesturing toward the mountain of corpses piled up behind everyone. Please just look at what's behind you. Great-grandfather came to this secret realm to resolve the calamity before us. It's clear that he was attacked by too many people at once. That's why he sacrificed himself. He lowered his head, a gentle, proud smile gracing his lips over what he had discovered. I've been gathering information about great-grandfather for a while, but I still lacked conclusive proof. Chao Ji clenched his right fist and placed it over his heart. His eyes filled with determination as he told everyone. But now the proof is right in front of us. Great-grandfather wasn't some wicked traitor. The truth is completely different. From the propaganda they've been spreading, all of his family members had been brought here. Everyone fell silent, listening to Chao Ji's lament. As long as this truth is made public, our great-grandfather's name will be cleared. We absolutely don't need Shama to keep living like this. The more he spoke, the angrier he became, gritting his teeth with resentment for the injustices his entire clan had suffered. He poured out all the years of pain. The Din family has no right to treat us like this. Chao Ji was like a different person. No longer cowardly standing with his head bowed, he had now learned how to speak up and fight back. Grandfather's family. My aunt's family. Second uncle's family. They didn't deserve to die like that, but Ding Qua waited for him to finish, then slapped his own forehead and threw his head back, laughing loudly. Childish, but what you said is true. The man shoved his hands into his pockets and stepped forward, his long legs moving in expensive leather shoes. That's right. Everything you said is the truth. His shadow fell over Qiao Ji, growing larger as he drew closer, forcing the boy to be wary. Your great-grandfather, Qiao An, did indeed die because he was ambushed. He really wasn't some kind of villain. To be more precise, Din Qua used his superior height to loom over the boy, adding to the pressure. He made no attempt to hide anything, admitting it all. In fact, at that time, it was my great-grandfather who got rich by ambushing Qiao An. But hey, who cares about that? His greedy and cruel eyes were filled with a shameless, mocking smile. Qiao An is a traitor to the Empire. He's the ugly villain. He stood there, laughing loudly with his good nephew and his wicked subordinates. So what if I kill your crazy father? So what if I kill those people? You descendants of traitors are all just that pathetic. Ding Qua then pointed a finger at the boy's family standing behind him. He didn't even try to be subtle, openly gesturing at the terrified crowd, whose faces had all turned ashen. The truth is, this family of yours, they all know. Hearing those words, Qiao Ji panicked. His eyes widened in disbelief, refusing to accept what the man was saying. Otherwise, how do you think those people you reported dead actually died? The man loosened the tie around his neck, closing his eyes casually as he gave the order. Kneel. Qiao Ji's family obeyed him without question, collapsing onto the hard, dry ground. His mother shut her eyes tightly, a look of resignation on her face as she clasped her hands. Z, I'm begging you, my son. Just admit you were wrong. Don't fight back anymore. It's useless. She couldn't hold back the humiliation tears streaming down her wrinkled face. I really don't want to lose my son. Not after your father already lost his mind. Hearing his mother's words, seeing her cry, a rage surged through Qiao Ji that made his thin frame tremble violently. Mom, I really can't stand it. An image of his mother from years ago. Her face, not yet etched with the marks of time, appeared in his mind. Z, don't pay any attention to them. You're the best. You're the best. Seeing the elders kneeling at the feet of his Din family, Din Hook broke into a wicked and arrogant smile. He lifted his leg and kicked hard at the back of Qiao Zi's head, his words filled with angry contempt. You snail. Still haven't learned your place, huh? You're going to kneel whether you want to or not. But he never expected that Qiao Ju could stop his kick with just one hand. In the same motion, he grabbed Din Hook's leg, let out a roar to release his pent-up fury, and flung the punk around in a circle. Qiao Ji threw him straight into a corner, sending him off to eat some dirt to curb his arrogance. He was more determined and powerful than ever before. He looked the man straight in the eye and declared loudly, I will never kneel again. Despite being thrown, Din Hook managed to get back up. He still wore that same cocky smile as he took a deep breath, rising from the dust and rubble and summoning his weapon to his right hand. Then he glared furiously at Q-Tree. So you've gotten better. You dare raise a hand against me, Din Hook roared, charging forward to teach him a lesson. But Q-Tree had already summoned his armor ready for battle. Let me remind you what it's like to be a punching bag. He unleashed a devastating punch that slammed right into his face the moment Din Hook closed in. For all his aggression, it was the second time he'd taken a full-blown counterattack. A blow he couldn't even dodge. Din Hook's eyes went wide. He couldn't seem to believe it. How could I get hit again and so quickly? How is this possible? Q-Tra held his shield, not looking at his captive mother as he quietly called out, Mom. Before he could finish, he channeled all his fury into his fist and brought it crashing down on Din Hook's face. We are the true descendants of heroes. Seeing his nephew being beaten by Q-Tree, Din Qua's brow furrowed and his voice deepened. Oh! Din Hook staggered back after the direct hit, clutching the cheek where he was struck. His eyes were bloodshot with rage. He gritted his teeth, hissing out every word. How is this possible? How could even you suddenly get so much stronger? He flew into a rage, relentlessly attacking Q-Tree, who strained to block every strike with his shield. You're supposed to be a punching bag. Din Hook had completely lost his composure. He was used to being arrogant and on top. At this moment, he couldn't accept being surpassed. Since we were kids, you've been nothing but a punching bag for me. He screamed, swinging his axe wildly and repeatedly against Q-Tree's shield. On what grounds? But Q-Tree didn't just block all of his attacks. He was even able to launch a counter that sent Din Hook's face crashing into the dirt. The events of the battle between Kyu, Atrai, and Din Hook were witnessed by a large crowd, among them his mother and his young aunt. Everyone stared at him in astonishment. After knocking him down, Kyo-tree stood tall, shield in hand. Looking down at his opponent from above, he said, "I'm not the same person I was before." Meanwhile, in the mirror world, Van Treat and the lingering spirit of Kyo-an were locked in a relentless battle. The spirit lacked the consciousness Kyo-an had before he died. It only knew how to attack the person before it with all its might. As Van Treat dodged and countered, he came to a conclusion based on the spirit's powerful attacks. This is the form of Bon at his peak. Right now, I'm still far weaker than he was. He watched as the spirit, with its gleaming golden shield and cold, emotionless eyes, stared him down, preparing to charge again. The two of them went back and forth, one advancing while the other retreated, one attacking while the other defended the fight, dragging on with no end in sight. If he weren't a defense-type class, and if he wasn't fighting without his consciousness, I would have been overwhelmed in an instant. Suddenly, Van Treat switched from defense to offense, moving quickly behind Kyo-an. I was the one who taught him his fighting techniques. He unleashed a sword strike that landed true, right at the edge of his shield, so I know his openings perfectly. The blow was effective. Kyo-an's health stat showed a small fluctuation, but his defensive power was still formidable. After reaching a class change level of over 60, I doubt I could do much damage even with a layered hissing blade. Just then, as Van Treat realized that there was no way that he could drain a large amount of his health, Kyo-an suddenly roared, unleashing a burst of energy from his body. An immense stream of energy like a blazing golden orb shot straight at Van Treat. He could only fall back after a single slash. Legendary tier skill, Golden Light Surge. His gaze turned colder. Van Treat looked at his old friend and thought, "This is a real pain." He managed to deflect Kyo-an's Golden Light Surge to the side. It slammed into the wall of the mirror cave, causing a massive explosion. At the same time, in the world outside, Din Hook was completely enraged. He started attacking recklessly, throwing everything he had at Kyo-tree. "You mutt chaotic mountain strike!" But while Kyo-tree blocked all of his attacks, the counters he returned were all taken head-on by Din Hook, who was beaten so badly his teeth were breaking. The whole crowd couldn't believe things had turned out this way. They could only stand there stunned, watching Kyo-tree beat Din Hook to a pulp. Seeing that his nephew was in trouble, Din Kwa decided to intervene. A layer of sharp armor formed over the man's hand. Hook, you can't even beat this little Q-brat now." With that, he leaped in front of Kyo-tree. He aimed a punch straight for his face. "Why don't I help you let off some steam, eh?" But it seems the man was a bit too confident in his own power. Din Kwa's fist was stopped by a shield of light that was rapidly expanding. The light grew brighter and more intense, completely unstoppable. "This is—" The shield emanated from Kyo-tree's own body. He stood at its center, one hand still gripping Din Hook's collar as he roared, "Golden Light Surge, you just stand back and watch. So much for a family of heroes. You're all just cowards who don't even dare to fight one-on-one." The scene shifted again back to the sharp slashes of Van Treat's sword. He continued to weave through Kyo-an's Golden Light Surge. Seeing how his slashes did nothing against that solid defense, he thought to himself, Golden Light Surge is a legendary tier skill, and so its defensive power isn't tied to the user's own defense stat. But Van Treat seemed to understand it perfectly. He pressed forward without hesitation. As long as it doesn't take a single hit that exceeds twice its maximum threshold, it can withstand at least 10 attacks. He continued to unleash a flurry of slashes. The two streams of purple and yellow light clashed, making the scene even more chaotic. But it's also a skill with a high energy cost. He noticed his slashes were starting. Even the slightest damage to that sturdy shield will drain its energy. At the same time, a thought passed through Van Treat's mind. Din Kwa could also easily break through Kyo-tree's defensive shield. Once its energy is depleted, any attack accumulated 10 times will shatter it, you little bastard. So what if you have the Golden Light Shield? He was like a demon from hell. His blood-red eyes blazed and a cruel, smug smile spread across his face. "That piece of trash Kyo-an used, I wouldn't even give it a second glance." Kyo-tree grabbed Din Hook by the collar and pulled him up. He used him as a human shield and cursed back at the bully. "If my great-grandfather were still here, yeah, you'd be on your knees begging for mercy." Having been thoroughly cursed out, Din Kwa roared. The wave of energy forced Kyo-tree to raise his shield as he was knocked back. He raised his hand, which had transformed into a claw. He stared straight at the boy and said, "Relying on some loser who got himself killed in a low-level secret realm, huh?" Din Kwa stomped his foot and the ground beneath him immediately began to sink. Even if he came, the sinking spread with dizzying speed. A large area beneath his feet cracked and shattered. Gravity crush kneel. Kyo Tree caught in the path of his gravity. Mol couldn't withstand the somewhat overwhelming power, and his entire body burst with blood from the pain. Seeing that he refused to kneel, Din Kwa's eyes turned red as he materialized a mace and slowly advanced on Kyo Tree. "Oh, you're a tough one, aren't you? But let's see how you'll be standing after I chop off both of your legs." As he spoke, he raised the mace high above his head, about to bring it down viciously. But in that instant, Kyo Tree's mother suddenly ran over and knelt at his feet, pleading, "Third Master, Kyo Tree is still young and doesn't know any better. Please spare him." And Nue looked up. Her terrified, tear-streaked face looked at him. "I'm kneeling before you now. I'll do whatever you want." Din Kwa paused his attack, glancing down with a scornful smirk at the miserable woman at his feet. "Oh, well then, how about this, you little brat?" Kyo Tree bravely endured, his eyes and mouth already bleeding from the force of Din Kwa's gravity. He still gritted his teeth, glaring defiantly at him. "If you don't kneel, I'll butcher your mother." The moment he finished speaking, the mace in Din Kwa's hand changed targets, swinging towards Kyo Tree's mother. Whatever. "There are plenty of people to cut down anyway," Kyo Tree screamed in horror, trying to stop Din Kwa's barbaric act. Before he could finish his sentence, his mace had already slammed down. Dust and debris flew in all directions, obscuring the view. Kyo Tree stood there, frozen, staring at the scene before him as if he couldn't believe what was happening. The cloud of dust was still thick, but a strong wind was gradually blowing it away. Faint sounds could be heard from within. Kyo Tree's family was stunned. Even the men who had followed Din Kwa and Ding Hook in were a little surprised. So was Din Kwa. He looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief, staring at his mace, which had been stopped by a black object. The spirit of Kyo-an had been brought into the real world. He stood gallantly shielding An-Nue. "You're Kyo-an." An-Nue looked up, stammering, unable to form words, as she looked at the glowing figure before her. Great ancestor." The men Din Kwa had brought with him began to panic. Someone shouted, "Kyo-an is alive again! Impossible! Impossible! How can a dead person come back to life?" Kyo Tree's young aunt and his other relatives also stared intently at the newcomer. That form looked more like an undead spirit. Von Treat waited until they had their fill of discussion before he slowly began to speak. "You all looked down on him so much before." He stood beside the undead Kyo-an and declared with a few dry jokes, "So he had no choice but to crawl up from hell to settle the score with all of you." Ding Kwa and his cronies gathered together facing the majestic Kyo-an. He didn't believe a word of it, still pointing and laughing mockingly at Von Treat. "Trying to scare me with ghosts. Get him!" With a flick of his index finger, his henchman charged forward aggressively to attack Kyo-an. "You have used iron armor, you have used shield armor, you have used guardian aura, you have used mass shield." Alone with a sword in his right hand and a shield in his left, he fought and blocked the attacks of 2 men at once. The number of attackers increased from 2 to 4. But every attack was repelled by Kyo-an. One by one, he knocked them out. Their swords were sliced in two by Kyo-an. Seeing him take on a crowd by himself, Kyo Tree's grandfather couldn't help but exclaim, "So strong, is that really Kyo-an?" Kyo Tree, too, was astonished. His eyes, bright behind his glasses, widened as he carefully watched every move of the man before him. This battle technique, to be able to block so many guards at once, it's just incredible. With one hand still casually tucked in his pocket, Din Kwa raised his axe with the other, pointing it at Von Treat's face and shouting, "This is the spirit you summoned, right? This kind of trash!" "My family used to summon them by the dozen." He raised the axe in his hand, holding it upright in front of him, and then smiled sinisterly. "Its level is only a mere 33. Ding." Kwa swung the axe over his head, gathering momentum as he leaped high into the air, intending to chop down amidst an arrogant jeer. This spirit of Kyo-an is nothing but a small fry. But as his axe descended slightly, the once shiny blade was now covered in a sticky, pitch-black substance. He couldn't swing it down. Ding Kwa's eyes began to fill with panic. "Huh!" Seeing that the attack had failed, Ding Kwa changed tactics. He unleashed a barrage of attacks on Kyo-an, but every move was blocked. He didn't care anymore. His eyes seethed with anger as he spread his hand, pouring blazing red energy into it. Combat skill. Din Kwa unleashed the energy. Chaotic Crab Claw. knocking Kyo-an back slightly. In the face of absolute power, everything else is useless. But his joy was short-lived. The same golden light from Kyo Tree earlier appeared again. It expanded, pushing against his not-so-handsome face and distorting his features. It's the golden light shield again. Standing in the distance, Von Treat looked coldly at his flailing hand and said, "You idiot. Even if he's become an undead spirit, he's an S-rank undead spirit, and that golden light shield alone is enough to keep you busy for half a day." He was forced back by Kyo-an's torrent of golden light. He had no other choice but to glance behind him and shout, "If we all charge now, we can drain its energy completely." But behind him it was completely empty. There wasn't a single soul. Dinghua turned his head to search for his lackeys, only to discover they were busy fighting the other undead spirits and couldn't help him. He gritted his teeth in anger, flexing as a suit of armor formed around him. It was a bit troublesome, but his power immediately skyrocketed, his entire body enveloped in a layer of brilliant red light. Kyo-an undead spirits. It doesn't matter. They're just a bunch of summons, that's all. After transforming, Dinghua charged towards Van Triet, who was standing there all alone. Just kill the summoner and the summoned creatures will naturally disappear. He thought he was being clever, and with too much confidence in his own power, he swung his claws. The ground in front of Dinghua instantly turned to dust and rubble. "I have this full set of high-grade equipment given to me by my great-grandfather. You really think you can fight me?" But just as that prideful thought finished, Van Triet glided past him with a gentle slash. Dinghua's entire right arm armor and all was shattered. Red blood gushed out. He still couldn't believe it. He forced himself to look back. What happened? How could he be completely uninjured? Dinghua flailed about wildly trying to fight for his life, but in a flash, Van Triet vanished again. He didn't know what to do. Panic was clear on his face and in his eyes. It disappeared. Van Triet, who had vanished from his sight, suddenly dove from the sky, plunging his sword straight into Dinghua's old back. He was completely unprepared for the surprise attack, and had no way to avoid it. He took the full brunt of that sword strike. Dinghua swung his arm using his own energy to fling Van Triet off his back, but at this moment, Kyo-an was running at full speed, closing in on him. Van Triet fell back. The moment he glanced over, he saw Kyo-an rushing forward. Bon, he got close enough. Then he reached out, grabbed the hilt of his shield, and powerfully braced himself, holding it out. Van Triet used his shield as a springboard, stomping down hard to gain momentum. The two of them were unbelievably in sync. Kyo-an assisted him, launching him straight towards the target Dinghua to deliver a fatal blow. The cut slashed across him, and Dinghua's blood sprayed out continuously. He couldn't help but try to follow Van Triet's shadow, and then he cursed, "Damn it!" Van Triet's eyes were sharp. His sword once again raised high, his entire face filled with killing intent. 1, 2, 3, 4! Then countless sword strikes were unleashed, all of them precisely cutting into Dinghua's body. His arm was severed. He looked at his own arm in horror and roared, his eyes shot with blood. "My arm!" Dinghua turned his head, searching for help from the men he'd brought, his voice still haughty as he commanded, "Damn it, healer, heal me!" But what answered him was the murderous gaze of Van Triet, who glided right behind him, appearing so suddenly like a phantom that Dinghua's words stopped in his throat. His reaction was still fast enough to increase the gravity around himself, but unfortunately Van Triet instantly vanished again. "Get out!" He used the mirror world to safely transfer to another location and landed gently. Van Triet paid him a little mind, a sneer, appearing in his eyes as he looked towards Dinghua and asked, "Well then, are you scared yet?" The man's face was pale, maybe from fear, maybe from too much blood loss. He screamed, "Healer, why aren't you healing me already?" But when he turned his head to look, the healer he'd brought along had been gifted a stab straight through the chest by Van Triet's undead spirit. All the men Dinghua had brought here to surround and capture Van Triet and Kyo Tree were lying on the ground. Not a single one had survived the undead spirits. From some point, Van Triet was standing tall within the green mist created by the spirits. "You still think my undead have the same power as when they were in your house?" The system panel displayed information about inversion at the same time. The green shadow of the evil Chong clung to Kyo-an's back. Van Triet kindly continued to explain evil Chong possession. Inversion. Attack power plus 30%, defense power plus 30%. It deals continuous damage to surrounding enemy units. Under the enhancement of a legendary grade skill, they are far beyond what the guards dropped from the vagrant Lord Dinghua could possibly handle. Dinghua looked up at Van Triet, and the aura of light he was creating, his expression growing more tense. Realizing he couldn't fight Van Triet's group alone, he immediately turned and ran for his life. "Damn it, run!" But as soon as he turned his head, the escape route behind him was quickly blocked by Kyo-an's shield. He switched to another direction, but the shield slammed down hard on the ground, blocking that path too. One-armed Dinghua fell into a panic, his face covered in sweat. From above, countless of Kyo-an's weapons rained down from the sky, sealing off his escape and trapping him inside a relatively spacious cage. Van Triet let him panic for a while before appearing. He held his sword and approached slowly, step by step. The exclusive skill of the Sword Guard class sword and shield absolute formation. Dinghua turned around. Trapped, but still acting tough, he looked at Van Triet. No one below S rank can get out of this. You can try. He had been forced into this corner. He had nothing left to lose. Dinghua raised a dark red object with a strange sigil into the air. Don't come any closer. He clutched it tightly in his hand, his tone still aggressive as he threatened Van Triet. In my hand is a void bomb. Van Triet stood there, his eyes cold, staring at the little act the man was trying to put on. This is an S-rank item my father gave me. If it explodes based on the amount of health a person of your level has, you'll die for sure. He stopped walking, letting Kyo-an slowly advance in his place amidst the challenge. Then set it off. Dinghua gripped it tightly, his voice getting louder and louder. He screamed himself hoarse, trying to intimidate them. Do you want to die? Based on my health, even if it explodes, I can survive. Van Triet stood there and slowly uttered words that plunged Dinghua into despair. Even if you blow Bonbon to bits, I can still resurrect him. Just as his words ended, the person who had been standing before him suddenly appeared behind his back. As for me, Van Triet coldly declared a rather unfortunate truth that Dinghua had failed to realize until now. If I'm not paying attention, you won't even be able to detonate it. He swung his sword and sliced off the man's right arm, which was holding the void bomb. The arm fell to the ground just like that. To Dinqua's utter astonishment, the void bomb followed suit. It fell with a thud, its color changing from a terrifying red to a gentle blue. Van Triet, with the imposing aura of a god, stood tall and coldly uttered two powerful words, kneel. Dinghua didn't try to act tough anymore. At this moment, he collapsed with a thud, kneeling on the rocky ground. Although Kyo-tree was clutching his own wounds, he couldn't help but smile with joy at this unforgettable sight. Dinhook, who had been beaten black and blue by him, had also regained consciousness. Tears and snot streamed down his face as he looked at his uncle. Like an executioner, Van Triet planted a foot on Dinqua's back, the sword in his hand resting against the man's neck. He asked his final humiliating questions to drive him into despair. Tell me, do you think you have any value left at all? Van Triet dropped his fighting stance, changed back into his normal clothes, and stood there. He checked his item inventory. There was a lot of miscellaneous stuff, even hundreds of health potions. He took out a bottle of shimmering golden liquid, holding it in his hand and examining it closely. Health potion restores 100 health points over 10 seconds. Effect cannot be stacked. Van Triet spoke as he turned to look at Dinghua, whose soul he had extracted, now standing obediently and watching. But based on the recovery speed of a health potion, even if I had used it back then, it would have been a drop in the ocean, and I still would have died. He recalled the earlier scene, a single decisive sword strike that sent blood flying. After he killed the real Dinghua, the man's soul manifested in his own private world. Since his soul had already appeared in the mirror world, it was convenient to just turn him into an undead spirit right then and there. In that moment, Van Triet finally grasped a new concept. So it's true I can acquire high-level undead by killing people. He looked towards the unconscious Dinhook, who was foaming at the mouth and sprawled on the ground, making his calculations. But I'll keep him alive for now. He might be useful later. Back in real time, Kyo-tree's grandfather looked at Van Triet's back as he intently checked his system and praised him to be so young and yet so powerful. He glanced towards his own grandson, who was holding his mother tightly and comforting her. Was he the one who guided Atreus' spirit has truly grown so much stronger? Just then, the remaining members of the Kyo family began to panic, looking at the old man. It's just that, what are we going to do now? The third master is dead. The Din family will definitely seek revenge. We're dead for sure. Kyo-trung hung his head dejectedly, the fear in his eyes from all those years impossible to hide. Even if that young man is strong, there's absolutely no way to survive after laying a hand on a hero. The terrifying image of the one hailed as a hero still lingered in his mind. The hero who could kill my grandfather 15 years ago would only be stronger now. Although Van Triet was standing quite a distance away, he could still hear all their lamentations. That's right. If what happened here gets out, I won't have much time left to level up. And get stronger. He also recalled the tall figure and terrifying gaze of that man. I need to level up quickly to be strong enough to deal with that Din Cone. As Van Treat was thinking, the system suddenly displayed a new notification. Level up. I leveled up by myself. He shifted his gaze to the group of undead, and still fighting enthusiastically nearby, and thought to himself, looks like sending these undead out to farm mobs was pretty effective. The crowd of green-skinned, bony zombies armed with swords blades or three-pronged, as spears charged at the remaining rogue-type mobs. Based on the current level and equipment of the undead, they could completely dominate this area. The group of undead stood in formation. As they swept past, a field of mobs fell to the ground. It's just that this dungeon is no longer enough to support my rapid leveling. Van Triet's thoughts shifted to Kyo-an, who was standing on a cliff. That's why I sent them away. There was a more important reason. He looked down below where a large monster was covered in chains. To find this dungeon's lord, Kyo-an, without a hint of hesitation, took his shield and leaped straight down from above. Unlike the rogue lord, this hidden boss, he just slammed his shield directly into the monster's head. The dungeon lord is the core of the entire dungeon. As long as you kill it, the entire dungeon will be considered conquered. At that point, the dungeon will naturally disappear. He continued to piece together the information he had, recalling the tightly controlled entrance. He thought the entrance to this dungeon was guarded by the teachers before. When the Kyo family was brought into the dungeon by Third Master Dean, they must have been seen. A hypothesis formed in his mind. The scene of the Kyo family members walking out will attract attention. If the Kyo family leaves alone now, they'll definitely be suspected. He planned a chaotic event that would throw everyone around the dungeon into confusion. The only way is to conquer the dungeon directly and make it disappear. Only then can the Kyo family escape during the chaos. At that moment, Kyo-an had just finished dealing with this dungeon's hidden boss. This way, the Din family will have no way to confirm the death of Third Master Dean. That should buy me some time. You have leveled up +1. You have defeated the Dungeon Lord, completing the dungeon conquest. The Kyo family member still inside the dungeon saw the space changing and looked at each other in confusion. The dungeon is starting to disappear. At that moment, Van Treat had his hands in his jacket pockets. He walked towards them and said in a concise tone, I've killed the Dungeon Lord. The disappearance of the secret realm will cause chaos. With Third Elder Ding missing, the Ding family won't be able to react quickly. He walks past them, glancing back once. Then he continues explaining the rest of the plan for after everyone uses the chaos to get out of here. You'll be safe for a short while. His eyes lower, becoming as cold as ice, sharp and threatening as he looks at the others. But if you're really investigated and pressured, Yunche's next words stun everyone in the Chow family, young and old. Then just put all the blame on me. He pulls his hand from his pocket as the secret realm rapidly disappears piece by piece. He calls up his system panel and summons an undead as a series of system notifications pop up again. Information is continuously updated. Mirror World. Skill description. Reversal can invert all things. Skill level. You have killed the Secret Realm Lord, the Giant-Eyed Demon. You have obtained the Secret Realm Core. It has been converted into a Mirror World element. Mirror World skill EXP plus 5,000. Yunche glances down. His face remains cold as he looks over the information. So it turns out you have to kill a Realm Lord to get the experience needed to upgrade Mirror World to level 3, huh? The last Mirror World upgrade gave me a massive boost. If I upgrade it again, I can definitely close the gap with Ding Kun much faster. The scene changes to another location. A party exploring a secret realm is standing in what seems to be some rich family's private domain. Suddenly, a man in heavy iron armor looks at the scene before him and sighs softly. Do we really need to be this serious? With a cigarette in his mouth, he scratches his head laughing and talking to himself while Yunche suddenly appears right behind him. Who would dare trespass? In this private secret realm anyway. We might as well sneak in a game of cards. His speed is too fast. In an instant, Yunche gets past the guards and enters the private secret realm. Just as he completely vanishes, behind the gate, the guard suddenly senses something is off and turns his head to look. Why do I feel like someone's behind me? Must be my imagination. He casually enters with a faint smile on his face. He walks straight in without meeting any obstacles. Civilian guards are at most level 30. One infiltration after another. Yunchi slips into this private secret realms like a ghost, so these private secret realms are practically defenseless against me. After clearing 2 gold and green secret realms, the next one he targets is emerald green. Almost there. It's another gate, but this time the gatekeeper sees the hem of his cloak and is utterly terrified. Almost there. Yunchi levels up continuously and his eyes grow colder and colder. I'm almost ready to kill that bastard Ding-kun. But before that, I need to hold back. He starts slaughtering the monsters inside each secret realm, constantly reminding himself to stay calm. Level up +1. You have killed the secret realm lord, secret realm conquered. Every step he takes is incredibly careful. The process of grinding monsters and leveling up goes very smoothly. Only by staying calm can I avoid making mistakes. Level up +1. You have killed the secret realm lord. Secret realm conquered. One secret realm and its lord after another fall before Yunche's blade. Stay calm. Level up +1. You have killed the secret realm lord. Secret realm conquered. He grows stronger and stronger, his seriousness making him seem more mature. Stay calm. Level up +1. You have killed the secret realm lord. Secret realm conquered. A series of newspaper headlines appear about the private secret realms being conquered, accompanied by a continuous stream of experience points. Daily news. Private secret realm maliciously conquered. Mirror world skill. EXP +5,000. Mirror world skill. EXP +5,000. Mirror world skill. EXP +5,000. Mirror world skill 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 EXP +5,000. Someone holds a newspaper with a photo of an undead that looks quite familiar from Yunche's group. Recently, a secret realm vandal has appeared. Many private secret realms have been maliciously infiltrated and conquered. The Public Security Bureau is taking this matter very seriously and has assigned high-ranking police officers to investigate. 2 people read 2 different newspapers focused on every word. One of them speaks up first. Was this the work of that Yunche kid? Chaoji's grandfather looks at the papers continuously reporting on Yunche and his actions. He frowns. So many secret realms being suddenly conquered. It must be related to the secret realm that was conquered when we were there. A cunning thought forms in his old mind. This way the Ding family's attention will be drawn to him. He suddenly looks up, his face lighting up with realization. He's doing all of this for us. Otherwise, we would have never been able to escape this place. The entire Chow family stares blankly at the words on the newspaper, discussing among themselves. This place is several days' journey from the Ding family's home, and it's very well hidden. It was so hard to cover our tracks. Xiaozhong pays no attention to the others' discussion. His eyes are wide as he mutters, he actually managed to get here. Then we don't need to worry anymore, that's right. We're finally safe. We might have actually escaped the Ding family. But just as that spark of joy appears, the house where they are staying suddenly explodes. 2 figures appear outside the crumbling wall, along with a familiar voice. Escape us! Ding Hao cracks his neck. He looks at the Chow family inside. You guys thought we'd chase after that criminal. Is that the criminal? Where is that Yunche guy, Ding Hao, level 42 head of 2 families? Even if you lot have no connection to the criminal just for daring to run from the Ding family. His hand made a choking gesture, his bloodshot eyes glaring at them with a vicious warning glint. I have to come and pay you a visit. Besides, aren't you underestimating? Shao, the hero clan, Ding Hao leaped into the room. Chow Zhong, along with Grandpa Chow and Little Aunt Chow, stood there stunned by his appearance. Not to mention those delusional traitors. Meanwhile, at a rather large secret realm, a huge crowd was waiting outside the gate. Ding Hao loudly announced to the Chow family, even the whereabouts of that criminal have been discovered. At the hero's secret realm, Yunche was still unaware of the trap being laid for him, waiting for him to fall into the net. He calmly finished leveling up, then majestically declared, Ding-kun, I'm coming for you. At the entrance of a private secret realm, a large crowd waited to enter. Yunche was also there at the hero's secret realm. He looked at the magnificent entrance and couldn't help but marvel. A private secret realm. The highest level I cleared before was over 30. If I just keep upgrading, the efficiency will be too low. He looked down at the layers of people in armor with weapons in hand formed into small squads patrolling everywhere. Higher-level secret realms like the Hero Secret Realm are all like this. Managed by the state, guarded by the military. No one can get within a 2-kilometer radius. Yun-Che stood in a corner using the mirror world to scout the situation. You have reached border exploration, but this time entering the mirror world I can only scout within a 200-meter range. He walked closer to Yun-Sha's position. Just then she tilted her head and looked back at the person approaching her from behind. It's basically impossible to sneak into secret realms like this without being discovered. Looks like I can only rely on her. She raised a finger and playfully wagged it from side to side, teasing Yun-Che a little. So you asked me to meet you here? Because you want me to get you in can't be done, you know. Yun-Sha looked up, her gaze shifting to stare straight ahead. In a soft voice, she told him, I don't know how much you understand about my identity. She stood there with her eyes closed, her hand gesture showing her helplessness. She didn't notice the 2 cards Yun-Che held out. But even I can't get in without a pass. I can't get in. Yun-Sha took the cards he offered between 2 fingers, glancing over them. With a conflicted expression, she asked, You came prepared? She studied them intently. She studied the pass that Yun-Che had given her. A temporary pass. It requires an escort to avoid inspection and investigation. Her gaze shifted from playful and innocent to a cautious, probing look. So why did you bypass the Ding family and decide you want to enter this secret realm undetected? Yun-Che didn't rush to explain. He brought up the image of Chao En standing on a mountain of corpses in the previous secret realm. You were in that traitor's secret realm too. You saw Chao En's stance. He smiled, closed his eyes, and began to explain his thoughts. If Chao En isn't as evil as they claim, then perhaps there's something wrong with the story of his betrayal. I want to help our friend to help the Chao family clear their name. I want to confront the hero and get to the bottom of this. But Yun-Sha looked at him with an annoyed expression. Are you taking me for a fool? She pointed out the oddity in Yun-Che's behavior. And you two are clearly not close, offending a hero for the sake of some Chao Ji. That just doesn't add up. Not to mention you've already snuck into the Ding family's residence earlier. Yun-Sha called Yun-Che's bluff. She stood there, arms crossed, waiting for him to be more honest. Don't tell me you foresaw what would happen with Chao En, and that's why you stole these passes beforehand. She continued, pointing out the previous incident in the secret realm when Ding Guo led a group in to capture him. Besides, not long ago, old Third Ding entered the traitor's secret realm. He was there specifically to cause trouble for you and Chao Zi. She placed a hand on her chin, pondering the events that followed. Her words were full of questions and suspicion. But then he went missing and he still hasn't been found. Yun-Sha's eyes stared intently at Yun-Che, scrutinizing his every expression. This clearly doesn't look like you're just trying to confront a hero. Her final sentence made Yun-Che just stand there looking at her with a smile. It looks more like you have some kind of enmity with the hero. Yun-Sha smirked her face, looking as if she had found a crack in his lies. Then there's your name, Yun-Che, surname Yun. Could it be you're related to that traitor Yun-Che from back then? But Yun-Che, having lived 2 lives, was certainly a bit quicker on his feet. He shrugged, raised his hands, and smiled innocently. Aren't you also surnamed Yun? Could it be you're also related to the traitor Yun-Che? Yun-Sha knew she couldn't win this argument. She grabbed the bow on her collar, closed her eyes, and retorted, I don't do things like that. Her long eyelashes hid the emotion in her eyes. Yun-Sha continued softly. And besides, my surname isn't actually Yun. Yun-Che went pale. Grasping at this bit of information, he latched on to her every word. So you just changed your name because you didn't want to be bothered. Then how do you know my surname is really Yun? Aren't you afraid I'll expose you? That doesn't sound like someone asking for a favor. Yun-Sha held the temporary pass and swiped it across her own neck. I could just report you directly to the military. Then you'd be dead for sure, you know. At this, Yun-Che fell silent. He was no longer looking at her with a playful smile. His voice and gaze became serious, filled with trust for the girl before him. I believe you won't do that. Yun-Sha met his gaze, and her whole body tensed up. She hugged her arms and continued to listen as Yun-Che took another step forward, pressing no sense to stepping back. I believe that the person who faced danger in the secret realm to stand up for her students wouldn't turn me into the Ding family. To prove that trust, Yun-Che took out a journal and held it out to Yun-Sha. This is a diary I stole from the Ding family. You can see for yourself all the evil things the descendants of the hero Ding Kun have done. Those people use their status as a hero's descendants to bully innocent girls and do all sorts of disgusting things. She still seemed a little unconvinced by the words inside as she held the diary up and looked at him. Just because of this, then you're being far too trusting. I don't care about things like that. Vansa looked at him with sharp eyes, wanting to use her words to pry out a little more information about the person before her. On the contrary, I thought you were composed, yet you so easily entrust your life and death to someone else. So naive. You've never been betrayed, have you? Hearing her question, Von Treat fell silent and smiled, his gaze growing distant as he murmured, "Betrayal, huh?" Seeing his overly calm demeanor, Vansa started to get annoyed. She crossed her arms and stared at Von Triet, who stood there, letting the wind blow through his hair and the hem of his outer coat. His voice was as calm as if it were nothing of consequence. "Whether I have or not, so what? It's not like I'd stop trusting others because of it." He walked up beside Vansa, still speaking with what sounded like absolute trust. "In fact, I believe your nature isn't a bad one." Vansa got goosebumps hearing him say that. She cringed, trying to get as far away from Von Triet as possible. "You don't seem like a good person either." After a bit of bickering, she finally turned to lead him into the secret realm. "If you really trust me that much, and then follow me. Let's see if I double-cross you along the way. Tough on the outside, soft on the inside." In the end, Vansa still quietly led him forward. After the two of them had walked for a while, she glanced at the person behind her as a thought quietly sparked in her mind. Unexpectedly, Vansa led him right to the guards. As they walked, that thought began to blossom. To think after all this, I'm still considered a good, trustworthy person. A man holding a stack of papers stood at the entrance. As soon as he saw it was Vansa, he raised his hand to wave a greeting. "Lady Vansa, the hero, has been waiting for you for many days. We received word from above. Lady Vansa can enter directly." He stared wide-eyed at the two of them, then asked her with a strange expression, "But why aren't you with the old Master Ding Dang?" "The old master just entered the secret realm." His attention shifted to the cloaked person following Vansa. He asked curiously, "Is that cloaked person your guard?" "It's not that I doubt you, but when the old master entered, he did mention that the household's travel passes were temporarily stolen, so we have to be extremely careful." Vansa pointed at the guard, her voice teasing, and her eyes narrowed slightly, which made him panic. "Not doubting me, huh? Then what do you call this, an interrogation?" "Of course not," he hurriedly explained himself. "We don't doubt you, my lady. It's mainly because we received a security alert. A malicious criminal who attacked a secret realm was recently spotted heading toward the hero's secret realm." Vansa smiled and glanced at Von Treat, who was huddled inside his tightly hooded cloak. The worried guard tried to explain further. Vansa playfully turned her head to tease Von Treat. "We're also doing this for your safety, just following the rules. If your guard has been replaced, they insist on investigating that person." She ran over to him, slung an arm forcefully around his neck, and laughed playfully. "Oh well, just let them check." But a second later, she lifted his chin, tilting his face up slightly. Her sharp gaze fell on the guard. "So you think I wouldn't recognize my own, guard?" Her cold tone, carrying a hidden meaning, startled the group of guards. "Perhaps I've been replaced too. Why don't you investigate me as well?" "We wouldn't dare if Lady Vansa is so certain." "Then there's surely no mistake. Please enter." With a soft she coldly led Von Triet, walking confidently past the guards and into the secret realm. Vansa, who was in the lead, had already stepped inside. Triet followed right behind her, his upper body already through the gate. His eyes grew colder as he looked at the back of the person in front of him. Inside the secret realm. This person's status seems to be even higher than I imagined. Once inside with no one else but the two of them around, she spoke. "Based on your trust, I've brought you in this time. I don't care what you plan to do." Vansa turned to look at him, her face returning to its beautiful angelic expression. "But this is it." "I won't help you any further." Von Triet released his undead spirit, positioning it right in front of the entrance gate, and said to her, "Thank you. Take it with you. I'll handle things from here on. They won't suspect you anymore." Vansa turned away, annoyance written all over her face, and crossed her arms, letting him disappear on the spot. "I guess you do have some conscience." Von Triet teleported into the mirror world. Looking at Vansa's reflection from outside the mirror dimension, he quickly called up his system panel. He reached out and pressed the parameters on it. Mirror dimension description. Reverse and disable all ultimate skills. Use this time. I can finally use it. This was the ability after the mirror world leveled up to level 3. Immediately after the partitioned skill was activated, a system notification appeared, and then monsters were simultaneously copied and appeared. He calmly observed the entire process, thinking to himself, A level 3 mirror world can copy monsters from the real world's secret realm. Faced with the massive onslaught from these monsters, Von Triet remained very calm. He used his power to attack all of them while sighing with emotion internally. From now on, I can freely grind monsters in the mirror world without having to worry about being discovered. After getting a feel for fighting the created monsters, he leisurely left the mirror world, but a thought kept running through his mind. More importantly, Von Triet's eyes stared intently at the information panel, which was constantly updating with notifications. The corner of his mouth curved into an excited smile. Even when I leave the mirror world, the undead spirits can stay there and grind levels for me. He stood at a distance, looking at the panoramic view of the citadel, and marveled. To think they built an entire citadel inside a secret realm. At the same time, he made a decision. First, I should probably scout the area. Yunche's vision gradually came into focus, centering on the most magnificent and imposing building in the city. He recalled what he had read in the diary and silently confirmed it. According to the Ding family's journal, that must be where Ding Kun is. I know very little about him. Yunchi unconsciously brought a hand to his lips, his mind racing. All I know is that he reached S-Class 15 years ago, and after that it seems he never revealed his true strength to anyone. Even Third Elder Ding doesn't know for sure. He tried to connect this information with what he knew from his past life. If I had more detailed intel, my chances of dealing with him would be much higher. In my past life, I knew everyone who reached S-Class, but this guy, he just appeared out of nowhere. Yunchi suddenly turned around and asked Bonbon, "Do you know who he is?" Hearing the question, Chaoan looked utterly confused, his face vacant and dazed. Seeing this, Yunche couldn't help but grit his teeth, thinking with frustration, "It's still no use, huh?" He recalled his skill leveling up and thought with some confusion, "But it's clear that when the mirror world reached level 3, the intelligence of the undead should have increased noticeably." As Yunche pondered, he stared intently at him. Bonbon's intelligence had shown the most obvious increase of all. Noticing his stare, Chao An simply looked back with the same vacant expression, making Yunche second-guess himself. But still, it wasn't enough to be able to communicate. Yunche shifted his gaze toward the distant fortress, thinking to himself, "Perhaps if the mirror world keeps leveling up, Bonbon will regain more of his consciousness." The scene shifts to the magnificent building Yunche was observing. From inside, an urgent voice calls out, "Father! You always dote on Third Brother the most. You can't just sit there and do nothing." The speaker was Ding Dan. He was extremely anxious as he reported to the man in charge. "Third Brother's whereabouts are still unknown," he said urgently. "According to news from the base, that criminal, Asi, actually dared to come near this heroic secret realm." Witnessing Ding Dan's panic, Ding Kun said nothing, slowly pushing himself up to his feet. Seeing him approach, the old man continued to ramble on. "To have captured Third Brother so silently, I'm afraid he must be S-Class too. To be safe, I must ask you to help me, Father. Of course, if we could get the class change certificate." But before Ding Dan could finish his sentence, a hand suddenly burst through his chest. His urgent voice was cut short. After the sudden attack, Ding Kun warned in a cold voice, "You've lived this long, and you can't even stop a little brat, and now you presume to tell me what to do?" Ding Dan's eyes widened in utter disbelief. He coughed up a mouthful of blood, but Ding Kun paid no mind to his condition, scoffing, "This brat just barely reached S-Class and received the request for a class change. He wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow from me." The cold declaration from Ding Kun sent a chill down one's spine. "It's difficult for me to keep a worthless piece of trash like you around. I only kept you so you could take better care of my grandson." He clenched his fist, activating his ability to drain the life force from Ding Dan's body into his own. He spoke in a disappointed tone, "And the result, you not only lost him, but you also expect me to clean up your mess." The old man's life force drained away, his eyes losing focus, but Ding Kun paid it no mind and continued, "Do you have any idea, by losing Third Brother, I've not only lost a relative, I've also lost several years of my own lifespan. Do you hear me?" Meanwhile, outside the building, Ding Yan was riding on a slave's back, laughing with great amusement as he watched the scene around him. He continuously ordered the wolves onward. "Loot faster, go on loot." Amid the chaos, a little girl sat crying miserably. In contrast, Ding Yan's excited voice rang out, "If it all gets eaten, there'll be nothing left for you." Nancy approached from behind and suggested, "Young master, your pets haven't eaten meat in several days. How about—" From a corner, Yun Che was hidden, witnessing the entire scene. He struggled to contain his rage. Compared to this place, the Ding family outside the secret realm was incredibly restrained. No matter how hard he tried, the energy inside his body wouldn't stop, surging outwards, demanding to be released. Huh. Suddenly, Yunche sensed a surge of energy from behind him. He immediately turned to look. Chao An was now seething with pure rage. It was as if he had completely lost control. Yunche's gaze lowered as he murmured, "Bonbon. Even in a state like this, you still want to save people that badly." He recalled their past memories. Among the children in the disaster zone back then, you and Lan Kan were the kindest and the strongest. And when someone whipped them shouting, "A slave like you dares to steal the master's food," where did this little brat come from? Get lost. You still bravely stood in front of them. That's why I took you two on as my disciples and trained you. Yunche recalled his hope when he trained them. I hoped that after you became stronger, you could help others. His eyes grew sharp, his tone filled with deep regret. But in the end, it was I who destroyed you, who turned you into what you are now. Just then, Chao An suddenly mumbled something with great difficulty. Lan, Kan! Yunche immediately snapped to attention, exclaiming in shock, Bonbon, you! He strode forward and grabbed Chao An's shoulders, asking, Are you conscious? Can you? He didn't answer, instead uttering a name. Ding Kun. Chao An gritted his teeth filled with hatred and slowly said, Lan Kan is Ding Kun. Upon hearing these words, Yunche, his eyes flew wide open in horror. The scene cuts back to the inside of the building. After dealing with Ding Dan, Ding Kun slowly wiped the blood from his arm with a cloth and muttered a name. Yunche. Ding Kun drew the sword at his side. His tone was filled with rage. Yunche, are you purposely using this name to challenge me? His mask slowly faded away, revealing the face beneath as he mused indifferently. I can't believe it's been so many years. To hear that name again, the energy in his body suddenly erupted. Dean Khan let out a crazed smile. Let me see who dares to impersonate you, my beloved master.